truly, Sabella Santagrul, Martin Zaber, Austin Higgins, and myself. We have 2 associate members, David Little and Robert Wilkinson. The rules of this committee state that when regular members are in attendance and are qualified, they will be the voting members. Our rules further state that all members, regular and associate, whether voting or not, have equal standing to question, discuss, and opine on all matters before the board. We have on our agenda tonight 3 items, 2 new items, and 3 new items, actually, and 1 old business. So, the first item of business is old business, and it's a review of the minutes of the meeting of May 6th, 2026. Everyone should have received copies of those minutes. Are there any questions or comments on them?
I have 2 proposed revisions. One of them is the modification of the spelling of Mr. Robert Dewar. It's currently spelled D-E-W-E-R, should be A-R. And then the reduction in building coverage was, they mentioned it last week, last meeting, as 6,000 square feet originally. Approximately 6,300 square feet would be my proposed.
Right. Well, the decision has the exact numbers in there, but so with those proposed amendments, any other comments? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Aye.
The first item of new business is case number 2026-07. Frederick and Patricia Eppinger have applied for a special permit as set forth in Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 6, under the Orleans zoning bylaw, Section 16421A, footnote 5, building coverage over 4,000 square feet. The applicant is proposing to construct a detached garage. The property is located at 32 Haywood Lane, Orleans. I understand that these applicant has requested a continuance of this matter, and so I would like is there any discussion? Like a motion to grant the continuance to this, to the next hearing of the zoning board. Is there a motion?
I move to continue the case until the June 3rd meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Hagan.
I'll second that.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The next item is case number 2026-08. Matthew and Jamie Thompson have applied for a special permit as set forth in the Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 164-4, customary home occupation. The applicant is proposing to move Thompson's printing back into the original existing building where it was in 1975. The property is located at 102 South Orleans Road. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, someone here to present? Mr. Thompson, please.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I need to recuse myself from this one.
All right, thank you. Mr. Wilkinson is recused. I need to qualify the other members of the board. Is there any member of the board who has, because of conduct or conversation or relationship, find themselves unable to dispassionately and fairly consider this application? There being none, all members are qualified. Thank you. Mr. Thompson, please.
Yes.
Would you make your presentation, tell us what you're looking for and why?
Sure. We're applying for the special permit to allow customary home occupation to significantly downsize and move our existing printing business back into our home at 102 South Orleans Road, Route 28, between the police station and the nursing home. It was started there decades ago by my grandparents. It's zoned as a residential commercial property. Began in 1939 with my grandparents, Charles Sr. and Estelle Thompson. As a hobby on the porch. As it grew, it became an asset to the community and beyond. They moved it into the garage in 1944. It then became their home print shop. In 1962, my father, Charles Jr., started working with the family business. During that time, there were several additions to the garage to accommodate the growth and needs of our services. In 1975, as it outgrew the 102 South Orleans Road, it moved into the present location at 51 Finley Road, where it has been for 50 years. and then they expanded in 1989 to accommodate growth as well. I'm the third generation Thompson running the business. My wife and I purchased it in 2008. The industry has changed over the years, 87 years the company's been. Thompson Printing, traditional offset printing required a lot of square footage, pre-press equipment, and people to complete the jobs. And it has now moved to computers and digital equipment, which requires one person really to do the job. Jimmy and I wish to bring it full circle back home, back to the building where it was in 1975. We're not modifying the exterior of the building at all, with the exception of adding a couple of new doors and putting a little roof over the entrance where customers will come in to pick up their jobs. I could read more off of this, but I really don't need to. I can explain it just off the. It's basically the facility we're in now is a fraction of what we need. We can easily move our digital equipment and our computers into where it was back in 1975 without any change of the size of the property or anything. My parents are selling the property we're in now, so we have to get out anyway. We're being evacuated out of there, evicted, whatever you want to call it.
Don't you hate it when your parents kick you out?
Yeah, well, that was their exact words. We're kicking you out. It's okay. I wanted to move it back home anyway. My wife has had some health issues. She can no longer drive. It's small enough now where there's at present where there's only three of us, my wife, my sister-in-law, and myself. My sister-in-law, according to my father-in-law, is my wife too, because they're twins, and I don't have any choice in that matter. But we're trying to downsize and kind of slow things down a little bit. We don't want to try to grow it in any way. We just want to maintain the customers that we have, which are towns, churches, nonprofits, and some local businesses and stuff too. We're trying to get to 100 years, possibly more. I mean, I live on Cape Cod. I grew up here. I can't afford to retire. I'm going to have to work till I die. So this is our time to bring it back home where it belongs. And
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
thank you.
Any questions from the board?
I
Austin?
have a few,
Yes.
just related to special permits for home occupation. Is the materials, the processes that you're using for printing generate any hazardous fumes or anything that's noxious to?
There is no hazardous. We're not bringing offset printing back to it. It's all digital.
Okay.
So there's no fumes, no hazardous material whatsoever on the property. We don't even have it at where we're at now.
Okay.
The offset printing's kind of gone to the wayside. There's very few people still doing it. It's all digital. Computers, giant copiers that, mammoth the size that you have in the office, but production equipment.
Thank you. And then the only other question I have was, does it generate any significant noise or
No. No
any byproduct that would be, left outside before getting picked up by
No.
trash services?
No.
Okay.
None at all. We won't even have a dumpster there. There's no need for it.
Okay.
I mean, basically, we have paper scrap that we take to the dump and then recycle. And, nothing's going to be outside.
David?
So, on a typical day, how many cars might you have visiting your shop?
In the summer, like starting now, we may have 5 people come a day. In the fall and winter, you're lucky if you have 1 or 2. We ship most of our products out to people, or we deliver them. We don't have a lot of traffic anymore. Since COVID hit, we closed our doors. We've never let people in to shop in our front storefront at the Finley Road. We don't plan on having retail sales in that aspect. Customers mainly order their stuff via online, or they phone, or not on an email or on the phone, and then they either pick it up or we deliver it or ship it. There's not a lot of traffic anymore. Our door's been locked, like I said, since 2020.
So according to the assessors or the GIS map,
My little map where I drew some parking line, there's no parking
Exactly.
lines there.
no, I realize that. I went to the site, but you will have sufficient room.
Oh, most definitely, for whatever traffic comes and goes, yeah. I mean, we basically use 2 spaces up at the work we're at now, and they rarely ever have 2 customers at the same time, so.
Any other questions? Is there anyone in the public who wishes to make a comment on this application, either in favor or opposition? Is there anyone outside in the netherworld? Peggy?
No hands raised.
Great. What's your pleasure, gentlemen and lady?
Well, I think given the fact that it's in between the police station, that as you mentioned in your application, that you've got the police station on one side, you've got the terraces nursing home on the other side.
Yeah.
I don't see any impact on the neighborhood at all with what you're proposing.
I'm surprised the police haven't been here to complain.
No, the police are our friends. We have a key to the back door. The nursing home has a lot more traffic than we'll ever have. We'd actually like them to stop the trash trucks from coming at 5 in the morning, but, because they're required to have backup beepers on their machines, so.
I think it's a law, trash trucks have to come out at 5. Is there a motion?
I move we close it to the taking of public testimony.
Okay, there's a second to that motion.
Second.
Because Matt is virtual, I guess we do this by roll call. Matt,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Sibel,
Yes.
David,
No, I'm not
no,
voting.
Martin. Martin.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, public testimony is closed. Now, is there a motion?
I'd like to move to approve the special permit for customary home occupation.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? I'll call the roll. Matt,
Yes.
Sibel,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
I'm a yes, and Martin.
Yes.
Congratulations, Mr. Thompson, you have your special permit.
Thank you very much.
Now, before I call the next matter, which is I'll call the matter, where's my, you gonna read this? Case number 2026-06, preservation of affordable housing, Housing Assistance Corporation, and Habitat for Humanity, Cape Cod, have applied for a comprehensive permit that's set forth in Mass General Laws, Chapter 40B, Sections 20 through 23. The applicants are seeking approval to construct and operate 78 units of affordable and moderate income rental and home ownership housing in multiple phases. The property is located at 66 and 76 Route 6A, Orleans, map 26, parcels 22 and 23, and is located in the Village Center zoning district. The applicants seek waivers from the town of Orleans, local requirements and regulations as permitted by Mass General Laws, Chapter 40B, Sections 2023, including but not limited to the requirements to apply to town or other municipal boards or departments for building permit and sewer fees for the affordable units, and waivers from the zoning bylaw, including the requirements of 40,000 square feet of contiguous upland per dwelling unit, and the number of buildings and units per lot, Section 16420 of the bylaw, minimum front yard, minimum side yard, and maximum building height, Section 16421 of the bylaw, parking spaces located in side yards, 164-22 of the bylaw, minimum lot area of single-family houses, 16423 of the bylaw, units per acre of upland in the VC district for apartments and units in a single structure, 16423 of the bylaw, 31 of the bylaw, tree removal within the limit of work, 164-33 of the bylaw, parking required on the same lot and parking within 10 feet of a lot line, 164-34 of the bylaw, relief from 164-35 for signage, and waivers from the subdivision rules and regulations, including lot shape factor for Lot 1, 192-8 of the town code, I guess, and to use HDPE pipe for drainage, 192-15B. Before we take testimony on this, we're going to have the board has asked for, and the town has agreed, to have a little study session for the board to go over what the standards are for the waivers, what considerations we have to take in our hearing, and give us a genuine prep session before the hearing. At the conclusion of that, when the board is satisfied that we have enough understanding to proceed, we will then call the application and proceed. Thank you. Elizabeth Jenkins, please, of our Planning Department.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Mulligan, members of the board, members of the public. Elizabeth Jenkins, Assistant Director of Planning and Community Development. And as we've just seen, the board frequently and very adeptly deals traditionally with applications for special permits, variances, appeals, under which Mass General Law 40A is the controlling statute. But the application for you tonight, before you tonight, is for a comprehensive permit, and the comprehensive permit process is established by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40B. And the Chapter 40B statute establishes a consolidated local review and approval process for low and moderate income housing that empowers local zoning boards of appeals to hold hearings and make binding decisions that accompany all local bylaws and regulations. And I'll just note, our board does not have rules and procedures for reviewing comprehensive permit applications, so our review here will adhere to the Code of Massachusetts regulations that provides how a comprehensive permit application and hearing should be run. So the 40B process was enacted to help municipalities provide affordable housing to low and moderate income households, and the law encourages development by reducing regulatory barriers that are often posed by local zoning regulations. This process allows the zoning board to approve housing developments with waivers of specific requirements when a minimum of 25% of the units are proposed to have long-term affordability restrictions. Under Chapter 40B, each municipality has a state-mandated goal of maintaining at least 10% of its year-round housing stock as affordable housing. If a community satisfies the 10% threshold, it demonstrates that we're making progress towards meeting our affordable housing goals in a manner that's consistent with our local needs. And as of March 13th, 2026, the state subsidized housing inventory, which is the measure by which we're making progress, lists the town of Orleans as having 11.09% of its year-round housing stock qualifying as deed-restricted affordable housing. So we exceed that 10% threshold. Should the board ever have to address a comprehensive permit application that was filed, it was filed without the participation of the town, the board has the ability to petition the state for what they call safe harbor status. And it opens up a pathway by which the board can deny a comprehensive permit. And this is where I believe it's important to see the larger context of this project and the application before you. I'll note that the current property owner for this project is the town of Orleans and the Orleans Affordable Housing Trust. The property was purchased in 2021 after a town meeting vote to acquire it for general municipal purposes, including but not limited to affordable housing. After it was acquired, the select board established a planning committee, which was tasked with making a recommendation for development options on the site. And that committee hired a consultant and conducted a robust community engagement process, and also ultimately recommended that the entire site should be devoted to housing units. And there were very specific goals and benchmarks within that recommendation regarding the development that might occur on the site as well. So a request for proposals was developed consistent with the committee's recommendations, and this was issued in August of 2023. The town awarded the opportunity to develop the property to the applicants you have here this evening. And essentially a PNS, a real property disposition agreement, was signed in February 2025 that binds the applicants to bring forward a development consistent with their awarded response. I'll also note that this project was filed with the state through the Local Initiative Program, which is intended for locally endorsed housing projects that are presumed to meet our community's needs. This process, also known as Friendly 40B, essentially applications to the state that allow a project to be eligible for a comprehensive permit are filed jointly by the applicant and the town. And this application was endorsed by the Select Board in March 2025 and signed by the Town Manager in March 2025. So just a few other notes on the process and our standard of review. Again, the comprehensive permit does allow the applicant to request waivers from as-of-right requirements of the zoning district in which the project is located in order to support the development that's proposed. And these waivers, as we just noticed, must be spelled out. And I would encourage the board not to consider waivers akin to variances, as you might in other review. I think it's fine to note the number and extent of waivers, but the board should be reviewing, what the board should be reviewing for is if those waivers are reasonable in view of the larger need we have as a community for low and moderate income housing. I'd also encourage the board, again, as they're reviewing, to see if the project as a whole successfully mitigates any potential impacts it might have relative to health and safety, if we have high-quality site and building design consistent with the surroundings, and if the project protects the natural environment. So often, a comprehensive permit can mean heavy lifting for a zoning board of appeals because you're being asked to play the role of all other local boards. In this case, there are no wetlands or other map-sensitive resource areas. There are no designated historic structures. Property is connected to town water and sewer. So your lift on this is lighter than it might be for other permit applications. But as the board reviews, also please keep in mind findings relative to if the project is consistent with our local comprehensive plan and if it's consistent with our 10-year housing action plan.
I should say at this point, before I open up for questions, that we're joined by our building commissioner, Davis Walters, who has provided us with a very complete, full discussion, a handbook for 48 pages for zoning board of appeals to considering these. So we have that background in terms of, that was very helpful, Davis. Thank you for that. With that, are there questions? Bob, please.
I just wanted to confirm a couple of things. This is really not a town project. This is being done by the Preservation for Affordable Housing, HAC, and Habitat for Humanity, and we're going to convey that property to them, I assume.
That's correct. So while this project is town-sponsored, we've sort of shifted our role and responsibility at this phase of the project to a regulatory authority.
And Orleans, as I understand it, does have safe harbor status.
So we have, again, 11.09% of our year-round housing stock as defined in the last census as affordable housing. So this means, again, we've made progress to show that we're consistent with local needs. Definition of that status as it is relative to an application has to be petitioned by the Zoning Board of Appeals to the state as part of a comprehensive permit application, should we want to formally establish
My
that.
understanding that whatever we decide cannot be appealed to the Housing Appeals Committee because we're safe harbor, is that correct?
Again, in order to establish that safe harbor status, we would have to petition at this point to the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities to establish that status.
Okay, my last
But that
question-
is what that process would accomplish, yes,
And my last question is that I understand this is a simple majority vote.
correct.
Thank you.
A simple majority vote, yes. Is that correct? Yes.
Despite our usual quorum requirements for this board being 4.
Yeah, it's-
Quorum still stands as 5,
Or I was thinking, sorry, for general approvals is 4.
right?
for
This,
the quorum.
according to the guidance that we have to operate under, it says that it's a simple majority of the sitting members.
You're an expert in the sitting as a majority.
I'm certainly humbled by Attorney Freeman's expertise in
I
40B,
assume-
and he is confirming it is a simple majority
So
vote.
I assume we choose our 5 voting members, even though we're a 7-member board.
Yeah. And I
Matt is recusing?
looks like we have a recusal
Matt
as
recusing?
well.
I believe he is.
Accusing, oh, all right. Very good. Other questions? Austin?
I have one question related to safe harbor. So we have 180 days from the opening of the meeting to close the meeting with a decision. Safe harbor.
Close the public hearing.
Close the public hearing, apologies. Safe harbor must be done within 15 days of the start,
Opening the hearing.
opening the meeting. So
Correct.
if at some point after 15 days, it is decided that we think there is a reason to deny the permit, do we have any standing to do at that point?
but the statutory guidance is 15 days. They have to do it within those 15 days.
So we have to deny it within 15 days, or we
No.
have to
You have to petition. for
petition
safe
that we
harbor
could
status.
deny it in the future?
That you have safe harbor status, correct.
Is
That
there-
you have the ability to, again, it opens up a pathway, and it's not necessarily presumed the applicant could then challenge your safe harbor status. There's a review process that it goes through and so on.
Maybe a question for the board is there any reason to not petition for safe harbor if it is a path? I'm just thinking of the options if at some point the board does determine that it is unacceptable as it currently stands, there would not be any path for us to deny it after 15 days.
Yeah, but I think we should wait till we get there.
I don't think now's the appropriate time to make that decision.
But I think, when is our next meeting? Is that within 15 days?
Well,
I would just,
Maybe at the
If it
end
goes
of,
well, we may
we haven't
decide
even
tonight.
seen a presentation.
certainly, I'm just,
I would encourage you to open the hearing, hear from the
yeah.
applicant, and then as we discuss and deliberate, we could have that conversation.
certainly, thank you.
David,
So, normally, Elizabeth, we're usually the last body that gets to review a project. And we haven't heard from Architectural Review,
they're gonna do that
Board of
tonight.
Water,
They do that tonight. They do that tonight.
but they haven't made comments to us.
So the procedure, under the statute and under CMR is those boards are noticed along with our, legal notice that we provide. And essentially that notice provides the other local boards, the application and an invitation to attend this hearing in order to hear directly from the applicant. Now, George and I interfaced with many of those boards, so when they got the notice, we put that on the agenda where that was available to explain to them, again, their role in the 40B process and their ability to comment. But many of them have commented that they, before they formulate comment, would like to see the presentation from the applicant. Certainly just seeing the application does not give you the full benefit of what the board will see tonight. So I imagine what will happen is that, I would encourage the board to keep your public hearing open to allow those boards and committees additional time to formulate comment to the ZBA.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions?
No, David, that's mine.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Sorry, one
Oh,
additional
wait,
question.
Austin?
So we have the ability to, make determinations for other boards. Does that include the Board of Health?
It does include the Board of Health.
Okay.
Yeah. So I will say, to the extent that you can waive any local regulation, state
Okay.
regulations cannot be waived.
And if I may add to also Architectural Review Board, we could,
So they, again, are a local board. I know they're aware of the application and have taken a look at it, and again, are
so we do have the opportunity to make comments about the architecture.
that's correct.
As
So,
well.
yeah, design, design, especially, I think the language out of the statute is, consistent with the surrounding neighborhood and the surrounding municipality relative to building design.
Okay, thank you.
Yep,
Thank you, Elizabeth.
thank you.
And again, thank you, Davis, for the information you gave us. What I'd like to do first and now is to qualify all the members of the board. Are there any members who, because of conduct or deliberations or relationships, feel that they cannot dispassionately and fairly consider this application? Hearing none, we consider them all qualified. And in light of one regular member recusing himself, I'll appoint, going by seniority, I'll appoint David Little as a voting member from the associate members. So the 5 voting members will be Savell, Austin, myself, David, and Martin. And for the order of proceeding this afternoon, tonight, I thought how we would proceed is first, we'd hear from the applicant, who will present the application and the reasons and details for the application. Then, since the board will be charged at the end of all public testimony, deciding and deliberating on the matter, the next period would be for the board to have questions only for the applicants in terms of the application. Then after the board's questions, we would open the floor for any representatives of committees or boards or agencies of the town to make their opinions known. They can ask questions and also opine, give their opinions on the application. And then lastly, we'll open the application or open the hearing for public comment by any members of the public. First, I would like to have them in order of those in support of the application, followed by those in opposition. So that's how I intend to proceed with the hearing tonight, unless there's any questions or objections to that order. Hearing none, would the applicants please come forward and make the presentation?
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I am Peter Freeman. I'm the attorney for the project with Moriarty, Bealen, and Gamache working in Barnstable. I'm a Cape Codder. We have the whole team here. Many of them will present the project details. My job is made a little easier by the excellent presentation by Elizabeth, so I don't need to go over some of those same things. I've done many, many 40B projects, including at least one in Orleans in the past, so happy to also answer questions, and Elizabeth does know what she's doing. So with me tonight and next to me right
I
now
want to
is
establish your credentials, Mr. Freeman.
Mike.
You've done this before,
I have done this before.
many times.
I have done this before in close to 150 towns in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
All right.
in every town on Cape Cod.
Okay, with that qualification, thank you.
Thank you very much. And with me right here is David Quinn from Housing Assistance Corp. We also have with us tonight Noreen Brown from Habitat for Humanity of Cape Cod and Charlie Dirac from Preservation of Affordable Housing, which we affectionately call POA, but it is Preservation of Affordable Housing. Dave will give a little background on how they have worked together in other projects that they've done on Cape Cod. Hopefully the technical experts will be able to get that going. I don't need the slides. Just want to point out a few kind of legalistic things and also orientation for you. As the chairman read, the project is composed of not just 3 developers, but 3 components. The first is rental units being developed by POA. I'll save a few words each time by saying POA. And that is a rental project with 61 units. Housing Assistance Corp. Is developing moderate income home ownership units, condominiums, and we call it Phase 2, the second portion, which is for households earning up to 200% of the AMI, area median income. The units that are the POA units, the rental units, are for households earning up to 80% of the AMI, and those are the so-called 40B units, because as Elizabeth explained, 40B projects have to have at least 25% of the units as so-called affordable or low and moderate income at no more than 80% of AMI. And likewise, also at AMI are the 7 also at 80% AMI are the 7 single-family homes that will be built by Habitat for Humanity. So that's the way the project is broken down. And because it's one site now, what we've also asked for in the application is for you folks standing in the shoes of the planning board, which is exactly what a zoning board does under Chapter 40B, to endorse at the end of the process a subdivision plan that will create the separate lots for the rental portion, the home ownership portion with the condominiums with Housing Assistance Corp., and then the 7 lots that Habitat will build and sell in the normal fashion, which I'm sure you're familiar with all over the Cape. So that would be at the end of the process. There are some waivers, as Elizabeth mentioned, that relate to that. My recommendation and my experience is that we should hold off until you're more familiar with the project. Any other town boards weighing in, as you mentioned, you'll have a better handle on going over the waivers. Naturally, we think they're justified, and they're all simply for the purpose of making the project work. And Dave will talk about the background, which I think is important in terms of some of the things that have already been done and being selected by the Select Board and the Affordable Housing Trust. So I'll hold off and let Dave do that. The only other thing I want to do in my introduction is the so-called legalistic things. There are 3 prerequisites to applying for a 40B, and we have met them all. First, you have to have a project eligibility letter from a state agency, and we have 2 project eligibility letters, both from state EOHLC, Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. So we have the project eligibility letter. We also control the site by virtue of the land disposition agreement with the Select Board and the Affordable Housing Trust, which was also mentioned by Elizabeth. And then you also have to be, or we also have to be, a qualified applicant, which is either nonprofit, which all of the applicants are, or a limited dividend organization. So being nonprofit, and in the future creating any specific limited dividend single-purpose entity, such as a limited liability company, they will also comply with the requirement to be a limited dividend or a nonprofit organization. So we check all the boxes in terms of the ability to be here. And with that, I will, at any time, be it tonight or the future meetings, of course, be happy to answer questions, but I'll turn it over to Dave and then the rest of the teams for the more interesting part with the photos.
Great, thank you. Good evening. David Quinn, I'm the VP of Real Estate Development at Housing Assistance Corporation. And I'm just going to briefly introduce the project on behalf of the development team, which is Housing Assistance Corporation, my organization, Preservation of Affordable Housing and Habitat for Humanity, Cape Cod. And I'll just start by noting that all three of our organizations are organizations that have developed projects either in Orleans or in nearby towns. So up on the screen we have a photo of Housing Assistance's recently completed project at 107 Main Street on the left and right in the center. On the bottom left is a recently completed Habitat for Humanity home in Orleans. And on the top is Brewster Woods, which is a project that was completed by Preservation of Affordable Housing and Housing Assistance Corporation jointly as a co-developer in Brewster. HAC and POA have coordinated on 9 projects together as co-developer. So we have a long history of working together jointly on these types of projects, and excited to be doing the same here again, and having Habitat for Humanity join our team as well. So the project overview, I think Elizabeth gave a great overview of the history of this project, and I think it's really important to start by acknowledging that this has been mainly a community-driven process. We've been following this long before the town purchased the property and decided to put it into affordable housing, recognizing that it was an excellent site for housing right downtown on a parcel that was walkable near the bike path. No environmental issues, really a great opportunity to invest and redevelop a currently vacant site. But the process of looking at this property and getting input has been going on for years, as Elizabeth mentioned, through various committees. And so our proposal really reflects the efforts of the community in telling us through the RFP process what it wanted to see. So what we've proposed is a project that first and foremost we want to look and feel like it belongs in downtown Orleans and on Cape Cod. And so we hope that you'll agree with us and that our architects have done a great job at balancing the need to provide a wide range of affordable housing, but also making sure that we meet the Cape Cod aesthetic and the appropriate use on that site. So we've broken the project up into 3 distinct phases, as Peter mentioned. The first phase being the rental phase, 61 rental homes. Second phase, 10 missing middle or middle income home ownership units that will be on the front of the property, and then also 7 single family homes, which will be Habitat for Humanity developed homes. We mentioned there's phases, but the goal of the project is to have them financed separately. But we're doing our best to try to coordinate so that construction happens as close together as possible, actually possibly constructing multiple phases at the same time, especially phase 1 and 2. And this is just briefly to show you the unit mix of the property. So you can see this really reflects the goal of having a wide range of different housing types and income limits. So up on the top, the AMI, that's the area median income. So you can see the rental project has a range of different tiers of affordability, 30% AMI, 50%, 60%, and 80%, both 1s, 2s, and 3-bedroom units. And then on the homeownership side, typically there's a higher demand and need for 2 and 3-bedroom units. So we have a mix of 2 and 3-bedroom units, both in the Habitat phase, 80% AMI phase, or all 3-bedroom homes. And on the phase 2, the townhome middle income phase, we have 8 2-bedrooms and 2 3-bedrooms. So I'll stop there and going going to turn it over to get into the details of the project and pass it over to our architect, Paul Adaman from Union Studio.
And let me introduce the rest of the team as well, because I neglected to do that for presentation. We have Paul Adaman from Union Studios. We also have Charlie, I think will discuss some things, but our engineer is Taria McGrail from Tig and Bond, and we also have, with Tig and Bond, the landscape architect, Joe Ficcicello, and I think that covers the folks who will be presenting. Thank you.
Great. Just a quick question. What is the AMI you're working on today? What would that be?
So it's, each year HUD issues a large chart, and it's a table that looks very similar to what I presented on the screen, where it has a different AMI that it assigns to each household size. So it's based on household size. So the area median income really varies depending on household size. So each of those units is based on a formula that captures the AMI and the percentage of the AMI for that household. If I'm remembering correctly, the most recent AMI for a family of 4, which is kind of the standard referenced point, was something in the range of 120,000. It was 100% AMI,
Very good. Thank you.
family 4, yeah.
Great. Good evening, everyone. I'm Paul Ataman. I'm a principal at Union Studio Architecture and Community Design. And I'll start with an overview of the site, which many people are very familiar with. It is a previously developed site with a one-story motel and outbuildings that cascade down behind the building. It has 2 points of ingress and egress along Route 6A and parking on the front of the building. There's also another building to the, let's say, Plan West that has been incorporated into the project site. On the Plan North, people may know that's the rail trail. So there's a sloping, the blue arrows show the topography that slopes from a high point at the middle of the site off to the back to the Plan Northeast and then the Plan South. And Taria, our civil engineer, and Joe, our landscape architect, will talk a little bit more in detail about the site features existing and as well as proposed with the design. When we started this process 2 years ago with the RFP response, we really took a hard look at the design objectives and what this neighborhood would be, what neighborhood we're creating, and what opportunities we have to knit the streetscape on 6A together, hide the parking from the public view along 6A, locate the larger buildings, which is building 1 and 2. Unfortunately, they're not labeled on this plan. Number 1 is on the Plan North. Building 2 is in the middle. Buildings 3 and 4 are the townhouses right along 6A. And then the 7 single-family Habitat for Humanity houses on the Plan West, Plan East edge of the property. So we looked at the design guidelines for the Orleans design guidelines. We're very familiar with the Cape Cod Commission design technical bulletin, and they since then have actually come out with a nice graphic of multifamily building design guidelines. And so with that, we were able to look at the village character and town character and the scale of buildings and the types of housing that we're proposing, from home ownership and townhouses to flats and rental, and then other home ownerships as single-family homes. So a real variety of scale of typologies. And with this, we integrated the vehicular circulation with the 2 points of ingress and egress, as I mentioned, ample parking, and most importantly, community and green spaces that really allow the residents places to gather and have functions and activities. And on the lower part of the site along Route 6A, an area where it's a landscape and an entry point that welcomes residents as well as visitors into the neighborhood. Very importantly, all of the pedestrian sidewalks are interconnected amongst the buildings out and also connected to 6A so people can walk to and from the site. And people can walk through the site to gain access to the bike path at the Plan North. And that Joe and Taria will talk a little bit more in detail about, but the meandering pathway down the slope to the rail trail is a real benefit to the residents of the neighborhood as well as the surrounding neighborhood. I mentioned that the Cape Cod Commission has really great guidelines for looking at place types, building typologies, building details, building materials, massing and scale, as well as landscaping and site design. So again, we use that as a reference for our proposed design. Looking a little bit more in detail, and I won't go into too much detail because you have all the information before you, but I did want to just show some of the elevations for the record that what we are achieving. Some of these are fairly large buildings, but we're worked very hard to bring down the scale with gables and undulations, but not too many, for the gable fronts to come up 2 feet from the main mass. And as you can see, building 1 on the lower elevation, there's a little bit of a hyphen. That's a 2-story connector between 2 volumes of the building. And in plan, which I'll point back to here, at the upper part of the site, it's also one portion of the plan is pushed back in plan to create not just a vertical undulation or relief, but also a horizontal one. We also thought it might be helpful to give some context of architectural precedents for each of the building types that we're proposing, things that are found here on Cape Cod. And we call this the missing middle, where there are larger structures that look like single-family homes or big estates. But really, they're inside of them, there's a lot of, they can be from anywhere from 6 to 12 units. And it really creates and makes a lot of the fabric around Orleans and Cape Cod communities. This is an architectural rendering of the proposed building number 1 in a 3D view. And then the front elevation, which is very flat, so that's why we thought the 3D rendering would be beneficial to show the board and the public. Building 2, a little bit smaller in footprint, but also 3 stories. And something that was very important to POA was, for the buildings number 1 and 2, is to provide elevator service and accessibility for every apartment, as well as visitability. So if you have a relative that is immobile or in a wheelchair, has trouble with mobility, they can come and visit you. They can take the elevator to the 3rd floor if you live on the 3rd floor and are able to visit. These are the 3D view again, and then the front elevation facing 6A on the lower right, and the rear elevation on the back. The materials are horizontal lap siding, vertical nickel gap siding, super insulated windows, because we're under the stretch code and mass building code, which is very strict, and we have environmental and sustainability goals for passive house certification. The shingles are asphalt shingles, and the roof pitches range from 4 and 12 on the building number 2 to 12 and 12 for the gables. The next precedent images are buildings 3 and 4, which are smaller in scale along 6A, and those are traditional townhouse type homes. Here are the proposed elevations, and you can see that each of the 5-unit structures step with the grade of 6A, and we worked hard with Taria and Joe to make that happen so that we were minimizing the amount of cut and fill and that it actually gave an opportunity for the townhouse to step along the sloping 6A. And then I think I'll turn it over to Taria to introduce you to the site plan.
Good evening. My name is Taria McGrail. I'm with Ty and Bond. I'm a senior project manager, civil engineer, working on this project. So Paul gave a great intro into the site. This slide, I just really wanted to point out some of our main goals for the project. Paul already described them, but it was really to look at road and sidewalk connectivity to the 6A neighborhood, creating those common greens and open space for gathering, passive recreation, and also for nice landscape elements. We also incorporated low-impact design strategies and also incorporated a comprehensive stormwater management design that really takes advantage of the site that we're working with. We've also tried to maintain vegetated buffers and also throughout the site, in consideration of all buildings and all areas, we've taken into consideration the existing topography to try to minimize the amount of development and site changes that we're making. So first, I just want to bring before you the subdivision plan that Peter had mentioned in his introduction. So we're looking at taking the two lots, which are the two lots at this site, which are number 66 and 76, and propose a subdivision that will include 9 new lots. So lot 1 is going to be the larger parcel that's going to be, mostly planned north on the site. It also has some frontage along 6A. That is going to be mostly for the phase 1 work. It'll be, you'll see buildings 1 and 2 fall within that area. Also, the majority of our parking areas, driveway network, sidewalks, green spaces, and also the bulk of our utilities are located within that lot 1 area. We're also creating lot 2, which is going to be the parcel that is located along 6A, kind of on the bottom left-hand side of the lot there. That's going to be where you'll see buildings 3 and 4 situated, along with parking that will be exclusive for buildings 3 and 4. And then along the right-hand side of the plan is for lots 3 through 9, and that's going to be for the Habitat homes. Those will be single-family dwellings that include the dwelling, a shed, a driveway, and a yard. So I'll briefly just kind of run through the existing site conditions and what we considered in the design. So as I mentioned, this is a combination of the parcels at 66 and 76 Route 6A. 66 Route 6A is going to be the larger lot that has currently has the motel buildings on it. 76 is the lot that's just to the bottom left of the larger parcel that right now has a single-story building that's much smaller in scale. Currently, there are 4 curb cuts coming off of 6A to access these 2 properties. You can see the 2 larger ones that are just below the motel building, and then also on 76, we have the 2 curb cuts creating a U-type driveway with parking there. Site topography is very variable across the site. Generally, we're sloping north to south, which is going to be left to right on this plan. So water is generally heading towards Town Cove. That larger motel building almost creates a ridge across the middle of the site and breaks the site into 2 watersheds for us to consider in the stormwater design. So the blue arrows are representing our general flow direction of stormwater. And also site topography. Arrows represent sloping downhill. So on what's the west side of the site, which is actually going to be planned north on the screen right here, we have a variation in grade that's about 30 feet from the motel towards the rail trail. And then along Route 6A, we're varying by about 17 feet from north to south, so left to right, along Route 6A. A little delay there, okay. So this plan does show the buildings labeled to help give clarity. Building 1, as previously noted, it's situated towards the rear of the lot. As I mentioned, we have about, quite a significant grade change that's moving across building 1. So in the design of the building, we've taken advantage of that grade change, and there's actually a lower level on the rail trail side that is situated lower and allows us for additional space as a result of the existing topography. So it's a lower level walkout on the rail trail side. We're proposing about 1.4 parking spaces per unit for Building 1, and those are mostly situated in the vicinity of Building 1 there. We're also proposing a dumpster enclosure that's, you can see just to the bottom left of Building 1. That will be for Building 1. Building 2 is situated to the right-hand side of what we're calling the common green, and it's also just to the plan south of the hillside green. And the hillside green is the area where you can see the walkway that's heading down towards the rail trail. Similar to Building 1, we're also proposing parking spaces at a ratio of 1.4 spaces per dwelling unit. And then we are also providing a dumpster enclosure near Building 2. It's just to the top right of Building 2. And that will be for the residents of Building 2. Buildings 3 and 4, as previously noted, are right along Route 6A, so they front right on 6A. Because we're dealing with a significant change in grade across the front of those buildings, 3 to 4, those building foundations have been carefully stepped, as Paul described, to help fit those buildings better to the sloping topography, also to minimize building height and steps to access each of those units. For buildings 3 and 4, those are going to each have two dedicated parking spaces per unit. And at each of those buildings, 3 and 4, there's 5 units in each building. Each unit has a dedicated yard space on the plan north side of each of those buildings. And in that location, there is a small storage container for people to store their trash and recycling. And buildings 5 through 11 are going to be the Habitat homes that are on the right-hand side of the plan. Those will be mostly accessed from that driveway, which is on the north side of the site, coming off of 6A. Each of those lots will be developed with a single-family dwelling, a shed that's located at the end of each of the driveways, and the driveway is sized to adequately provide parking for 2 vehicles. So one of the larger civil engineering tasks at this property was really the design of the stormwater management system. This system takes into account the ability to provide enhanced water quality treatment, management of all stormwater on site, and also groundwater recharge. The design that's before you meets and actually exceeds Mass Stormwater Design Standards, and we've incorporated green infrastructure along that hillside green in the form of bioretention areas that will provide us with enhanced water quality treatment. Those areas which are shown on there in blue with the more elliptical shape, they'll be planted with native plants. They will provide good opportunity for nitrogen uptake within those bioretentions. The circles that you see and the dashed lines on the plan, those represent, some of our pipe network and collection. So it's a combination of catch basins. We'll also have structural water quality units in there, and then the larger rectangles are subsurface groundwater recharge infiltration basins. Site utilities. At this site, we have the benefit of having a water system, town infrastructure available to us. We also have town sewer available for connection. So the proposed plan includes a new sewer collection system throughout the site that will tie into that existing infrastructure in Route 6A. We'll have underground electric throughout the site, providing services to all of the buildings. And then we've worked closely with the water superintendent to develop a design for a water main loop through the site, which will actually tie into the existing infrastructure in Route 6A and also provide a connection to an existing water main that's located in the rail trail bike path. Buildings 1 through 4 will include water services and also fire water service. Buildings 5 through 11 are the single-family dwellings. Each of those will have a potable water service. Throughout the site, we are proposing 4 fire hydrants, and we have met with the fire department to review hydrant locations, access to the buildings, and we plan to continue those conversations as we move into construction documents. So now I will turn it over to Joe Ficocello with Ty and Bond. He's landscape architect. Thank you. And he's virtual, so.
I'm virtual. Thanks, Taria. My name is Joe Ficocello. I'm Senior Landscape Architect at Halverson Ty and Bond. My apologies for not being there in person. Tonight, I will be walking through the main areas of the site from pedestrian perspective, from residential perspective. And as you've been hearing throughout the presentation, there are three main areas. There's the hillside green to the north of the site, which is our meander zone. And the common green, which is sort of the heart of the community. That's our sort of common space, our green space. And then our entry courtyard, just east of Building 2 on 6A. That's sort of it's the front stoop or the entry node of the site. If you go to the next slide, please. And just to kind of give a visual of the different feels for each one of these main zones or spaces within the site. You can see the upper left, our entry court. It's a little more intimate. We'll incorporate benches and seating areas, paved seating areas. We'll have trees there for shade, potentially a shade structure. And so it's meant for kind of more intimate gatherings. That's more kind of front and center and on 6A, so you can sort of see what's happening on the roadway as well as meet residents or visitors out there. So it'll be, again, smaller, more intimate. If we look to the larger image on the right, our common, you can see how that's much more open. We'll have lawn space out there. We'll also incorporate sitting areas for different sized gatherings for both residents and for visitors. And then again, sort of line it with trees and vegetation to sort of scale it against the parking and the buildings beyond, just to make sure it's really a comfortable space. And again, sort of that part of the community. And then in the lower left, we have a hillside green, and that's our nice kind of meander walk. We've managed to do a couple things there. One is that is a sloped walk. So it's not a technical ramp. In other words, rails, and people that have mobility needs can easily kind of navigate that as they access the rail trail to the west. The other thing it does is it's an opportunity to incorporate, as Taria was just talking about, some stormwater management strategies, and sort of overlaid on top of that is native planting that hopefully will bring in sort of wildlife and pollinators and little critters in there as well. Next slide. So we talked a little bit about connections from a pedestrian resident perspective, and so this slide here just shows how we're achieving that. So we have our three main zones, and how we're putting a lot of thought into safe connections for pedestrians, minimizing where we can conflicts with vehicles. All of these routes are accessible. Next slide. And then connections through the site and off the site. You can see we have multiple points along 6A between building 3 and 4, between building 4 and 2, and through the green, as well as that front node space along 6A. And then also, of course, our meander down our slopes green there and over to the rail trail. And then just thinking of inspiration. So as we start to think of materiality, we're going to be cognizant of the context, of course. And so this slide here shows the two main node areas. And on the left there, some inspiration images that will help inform, again, materiality as we think of that. And then also programming, how we can start to envision residents using these spaces. And next slide. And this is our slope plan, Slope Green. And again, images on the left are inspiration of how we are starting to envision planting happening out there. You know, it's sort of naturalized areas. And then the lower image on the right is that visualization that we created that starts to show what we've developed as a design for the site. And that's all I have.
So that is our visual presentation and description, which we think is quite thorough. The only additional thing I would mention before you ask questions is, as part of the long process of working on the project and reaching agreement with the town and the land disposition agreement, in preparation for this zoning board of appeals process, we did voluntarily meet with the site plan review committee, the folks who are the heads of all the boards and staff, and we don't need to go into much detail. I don't know if they submitted a report yet, but they were basically satisfied. There were a few suggestions, and that led to a second meeting. And as I think Dave or Paul mentioned, probably Paul, you know, met with the fire department, and they're satisfied, and the other departments. And then also voluntarily met with the Architectural Review Commission. There was one meeting recently. I think there may be another one. I'm sure they'll have comments. But, you know, I mention that because I think it's important for us to show we're mindful of, and we want you to be mindful of the fact that we truly do see this as a cooperative process and a friendly 40B. And that's the way we want it, and we'll continue to work with you folks. So I think that's it in terms of, unless, Charlie, do you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think that was great.
Okay, so thank you very much. Happy to answer questions.
Very good, thank you. Members of the board, questions?
Sure, I'll start.
Yeah, please.
With respect to the landscaping, will there be trees in front of Building 2 to kind of dampen the massing of Building 2 as seen from Route 6A?
I can answer that. Yes, there will be. So that's, I'm assuming you're talking about that sort of front node that we have there between Building 2 and 6A.
Exactly.
Yep, so yes, we do have shade trees there, both, you know, larger and medium size, and some flowering in there, as well as a shrub planting at the ground plane.
Because that's a pretty big, from the perspective from Route 6A, we really haven't seen a visual from the west side of the property to the east side of the buildings together, and the massing, so it's kind of hard. And Building 2 in particular is quite tall, and I just think that it's important to have the something to break that up.
We could probably do a perspective rendering, I would assume.
I think it would be helpful. I'm not so concerned about the perspective from the rail trail from east to west, but I think from the public view shed, looking at it as you're going along Route 6A, that something to see the massing would be very helpful. I'm sure I'll think of something else, Jerry, but that's all for now.
May I?
Yeah, please, Isabel.
In terms of architecturally speaking, and the massing and the landscaping and the parking, I really can appreciate buildings 3 and 4 in terms of the size and the scale, and in fitting with the smaller size buildings in the immediate area. So that's a nice way of beginning, you know, going into the property. But as you go in, and then the smaller units, obviously, along the east, buildings 5 to 11, those are also at a nice small scale, although very close. But then once you go into Building 2, and especially 1, it just seems like it's quite a lot. And I appreciate the fact that you tried to separate them and do, you know, some other features, but in looking at the elevations, it seems like the volumes could be reduced and worked more better. Even like the way that the windows are located, just seems like it's way too repetitious. But more than, and that really bothers me quite a lot, but also in terms of where the parking is. And I appreciate the fact that you're trying to create like an outdoor space in the middle, but it's really a small green that's in a huge lot of parking area. Was it ever studied to see if that green area could be made larger by perhaps moving some of the parking to the back of building 1 where there's like a walkout underneath and maybe some more parking is hidden in the back? It just seems like it's a lot of parking, and I don't know if it exactly fits in with what the town was envisioning for the future of development in Orleans, where we reduce the parking so that you don't really see it so much from the street side, you know, maybe reduce the amount of parking that we need to provide, or hide it, or something.
I would say it's certainly something that we can look at. I think one of the constraints that we're dealing with, it's kind of hard to get a sense of this just from these aerial images, but the the sloping around the site, I think, can make it challenging for us to move parking kind of behind and to the sides of buildings. But with that said, we can certainly take a look at it, and if there's a really strong preference to emphasize that center green, you know, we can always balance the need and desire for a healthy parking count with open space and other concerns of the community.
For instance, what is, would you be able to tell us what the width of that green space is? Because it seems like it's even like the same size as the width of buildings 3 and 4, which isn't that much.
Taria, do you know dimensions of the? Joe, I don't know if you have any thoughts on the dimensions of the center green.
The center green's actually, it's quite long, you know, and it is narrow, which we're trying to, you know, take advantage of that by introducing that nice kind of long stretch of lawn in there. In terms of dimension, I think it's probably about 50 feet by 100, but somewhere that's a heavy plus minus.
Yeah.
So then the buildings 3 and 4 width are 50 feet as well?
Hi, this is Paul. No, they're not that deep. The buildings are about 36
Yeah,
feet.
that's what it seems like. So
Yeah.
it seemed like a child, for instance, throwing a ball in that green area, it could go onto the road and there are cars going all around. It was just a concern.
Yeah, I think if you look at Joe, you might be able to point out the design of it.
It's-
There's stone walls that bound.
There are,
the
you know, I
common
mean,
green.
the green itself it's pretty long. I just, you know, again, this is very rough. But, you know, it's about 9 parking spaces wide, and I'm assuming those are at least 8 foot wide parking spaces. And that's just sort of the lawn area itself.
And then have you also looked into bike paths connecting to the bike rail path? Is that how bikes wouldn't be able to go in that nice green area that you have, the hillside green, correct? That's pedestrian.
Primarily pedestrian access.
The meander could be used also for bikes. That's the intention.
Yeah, we designed it at, Joe, I believe it's either 6 or 8 feet wide, that pathway going down to the hillside green. The slope throughout is 5% or less to maintain ADA accessibility. There may be needs to walk bikes, up the hill. There are switchbacks, but we went through many different layout, really trying to meet the ADA demand without having to do a ramp or add any kind of other stepped type access. That was really a challenge to try to get meet that 5% or less slope throughout that bike path down. And that's why it's set up right now with the switchbacks going back and forth. We did try to make them as generous as we could fit, but we were also trying to balance the need to meet ADA requirements, also try to minimize the amount of development on the hillside green, and also try to create focal points going around the bioretention areas so that they can be nice nodes with benches on the ends at each switchback angle.
Thank you. Yeah, I think my major concerns are the amount of parking and just the volume. Even in building one, the view that we see from the path, it seems like it's a lot of volume.
It's a big building.
It's a huge building, yeah, and there are many ways architecturally speaking to break that down without resorting to different vertical or horizontal.
Other question, Martin?
Back to the parking spaces, what is the formula that you use to get the 1.4 spaces for buildings 1 and 2?
So we took a look at the site and we tried to provide what we feel is enough spaces for the use that, enough spaces for the residents at the property. The 1.4 is based on having so many parking spaces in the vicinity of building 1 and dividing it by the number of units. So we tried to focus a certain amount of parking spaces around building 1, similarly with a good amount of ADA accessible parking spaces at building 1, and we tried to distribute them around buildings 1 and 2 to provide ample parking for each of those buildings.
So there isn't some assumption about how many units would have 1 or 2 cars? 'Cause as much as I know where you don't want to have non-porous, you don't want to have a lot of asphalt, you also have to have enough parking for the area. And is there any guest parking?
So the assumptions on building 1, I believe that per the current zoning, it's 1 space is required per dwelling unit. The 1.4 allows us to have some visitor spaces. The 2 spaces per dwelling unit for buildings 3 and 4 and the habitat, we really wanted to give those 2 spaces each because they're home ownership.
Yeah, no, that was good. I was glad to see that.
And I can just add a little bit to that. The parking ratio on the rental phase was also based on looking at other similar properties that are run by POA that they've built on Cape Cod, and looking at their current parking count going during the day and the evening and seeing how many spaces are available and feeling comfortable with that ratio. Somewhere just under 1.5.
Use some real life examples. That's what I wanted to hear.
And the same thing for the home ownership. The home ownership units are all either 2s and 3s, and so we thought it just makes sense that if you're purchasing a condo or a home, you need at least 2 spots.
You've got 200, AMI percent property.
Exactly.
Odds are they're going to have 2 cars.
Correct. Yep.
Austin?
Two items come to mind. I'll extend on the parking matter. There's a number of parking spots that are listed as EV. Are there any, electrical supplies, or are these just markers on the ground to designate these are EV specific parking spots?
I think the plan is to have EV charging. Yeah.
What is the number of EV chargers commensurate with the number of spots that are listed here on the order of 24, or is it a subset of the EV marked spots will be? My question is, there's a lot of EV spots compared to what I would expect, and I was curious if that was commensurate or consistent with the kind of the going rate of EV versus internal combustion engine cars.
So it's Massachusetts building code and stretch code requirements.
Okay.
20%, that's what it's been calculated at. So.
Perfect.
Yep.
Wow.
The second question I have unrelated to parking, going back to the meandering path, thinking to some of the units that are on the bottom floor, I assume most tenants would go through the building and downstairs in order to access the lower floor units. There is a path going out the back that connects to one of the bends in the meandering path. I see an area, I'm not entirely sure if that is that a playground potentially, or some structure to the rightward of the building. It seems like there's an opportunity for a desire path to form in that area by folks wanting to walk down to cut the corner. Someone walking from groceries from that rightward parking lot would have to walk quite a circuitous distance to get into those lower areas. I wonder if there's any thought put into how to avoid those so-called desire paths from forming, both to get access to the backside of Building 1, but also as you go down the slope to the rail trail. Is there anything that would disincentivize somebody from just going down? And should there be a consideration for stairs in some areas to focus people onto actual paths and not destroy landscape that might be beneficial to water retention and recharge?
Right, so I think that the site topography will create quite a bit of, make it not quite the easiest path to go. For example, there's a bit of grade drop off from the front of the building to the back, even on the right side. You are correct that that's slated to be like a play area for children. So it is a little bit more level up closer to, just off the back side of the parking area, and that path next to it is at 5% going down. So there's not, when you stay on the path and close to the path, the slope is going to be closer to the 5%. But if you were to walk right next to the building, front to back, you're looking at a slope that's about like 3-to-1. So I think that slope will deter people. As far as shortcutting right top to bottom and not doing the switchbacks on the accessible pathway, in between each of those, there's going to be the bioretention areas. There's going to be 3 of them in there. There's one that does not have one, but those bioretention areas similarly are going to be taller grass, some shrubs. There's going to be some side slope in there. So again, it's not going to be an area I think anybody's really going to want to walk through.
Okay.
Could I segue on that?
Sure, I have one over.
So, Taria, for instance, could you go, if someone wanted to get to the rail trail, could you go here to there and like right down to it?
Exactly the
Avoid-
shortcut I would take.
Right. I mean, just avoid
Yeah,
I just see kids not following the meandering path.
Yeah, and the intent in that area, I believe we have, and Joe might be able to clarify, and if it's not in there, it would be some vegetation that's going to be a little bit thicker, maybe some shrubs, material that's not going to be as friendly to walk through.
I'm thinking of human nature.
Yeah.
Myself, I'd probably want to go a direct route to get to my bike out on the bike path. And I think it's worth looking into.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if not, stairs to incentivize, people to take these dedicated, modes of travel, something to deter, like you said, whether it's shrubbery or natural deterrents, or I see there might maybe some fencing around those turnarounds, those bends, just something to deter it, because I think, like David mentioned, I think human nature will create unpaved paths throughout this project. So if there's ways that we could mitigate that, both from a just general safety perspective, like 3-to-1 grade, carrying a bunch of groceries, it's the choice I would make is to walk down that slope. May not be desirable.
And thank you for pointing out, there are, because of those slopes going towards the bioretention areas, there is a soft shoulder off the edge of that path, but then there is going to be some form of a fence that would be a safety measure.
Okay, is that soft shoulder kind of like a Cape Cod berm on the side of?
No, not even, just maybe, it's just going to be, you'll have your paved or hardened walkway, and then maybe a foot or so of just grass or gravel that's not too steeply pitched
Okay.
yet, and then it will slope down. So that fence will be
Gotcha.
coincide with that flatter area shoulder.
Okay.
Other questions? Well, let me ask a couple. I'm neither an architect nor an aesthete, but one of the waivers that we have to give is for height. And it seems to me, just looking at these pictures, and I'm not sure they're accurate reflections, but it looks like a very steep roof on these buildings that add mass and height. And I'm just wondering why, maybe I'm misperceiving this, but these are 41 foot, 2 3/4 inch roofs. And they seem to me very steep, needlessly steep. But maybe I defer.
Paul can answer, but
Yeah.
I have some experience for years on the Cape as chairman of Old Kings Highway Regional Historic District years ago. So you're right that it increases height, the steep pitch, but that's also typically, I'm not saying that your comments aren't well placed, but the reason, and Paul can back me up or perhaps tell me I'm wrong, but traditionally the very steep pitched roofs and the gable design are much more evocative of the Cape Cod style. So certainly it would reduce a good number of feet if there were, for example, a flat roof, but that tends to be perceived as not as much in keeping with the character of the area. So I'll stop there and let the real expert speak.
Well, that's a great introduction to that reasoning. And the 12 and 12 pitch is very typical. And that we use it very sparingly and intentionally for the smaller volumes of the gable. If you look behind you, the short gables that are not as wide have a 12 and 12 pitch so that the ridge line is not as tall. Where the facade is a little longer, maybe it's 40 feet, then we've reduced the pitch down to 9 to bring that ridge line down, so that the 12 and 12 is actually predominant ridge height. And that's typically what you architecturally would like to design. And in the bulletin, the Cape Cod Commission bulletin, they have a section there, they talk very specifically about the range of the pitch to be ideally between 7 and 12. Anything lower is not typical. And so, you look at the Greek Revival architecture, as Peter mentioned, you do see a lot of the 12 and 12, 10 and 12 pitches. So it's a little bit of, it's a tough thing to balance.
We have a different experience in that we have a 30-foot, very strict height limit in the town now. And so we see a lot of houses coming in with people having much, not flat, not arguing for flat, but much less steep housing, just to keep under that 30-foot. So if you go around town, you'll see a lot of houses with less steep roofs than traditionally Cape Cod.
I would also say that the topography and how one measures the building height has a lot to do with the ask and what you actually perceive from the road. Like if you look behind you, that's a 2-story building with a large attic. And so the perceived...
Nothing's up there, right? There's nothing... It's just,
well, on the back, there's solar panels.
I mean, but underneath...
No, nothing occupied, correct. Right. But we're also using, on the back side, on building 1, we're cutting out the roof to put all the mechanical units. Okay, so that there's an advantage to shield a lot of the mechanicals from view and from grade.
Backside of building 1, no one's going to see.
I'm sorry?
No one's going to see the backside of building 1, really. That's back into the trees, right?
The rail trail.
Yeah, the rail trail, and there's a thick, there seems to be thick foliage there. But on 6A, you're at a height anyway. You're higher than the road on 6A, and you've got this tall building with a steep. It's just going to make it look like a very out of height for the rest of the town.
Jerry, if I could point out, this is in the Village Center District.
I understand.
And the height, they don't have the same 30-foot height restriction that we have in the residential
I
district.
know that, because we had a discussion about the Earth Food Store, or whatever that is, that has the height. But I just think it's a lot of mass and a lot of height for no purpose.
Yeah, the gentleman, the board member would like to say something.
Jerry, as you know, I grew up in Wellfleet, and there are a ton of Greek revivals in downtown Wellfleet, and I think they're the better looking building. The problem, as I see it, is building 1 and building 2 are massive buildings. Unfortunately, if you put a hip roof, a lower roof, I believe the building would be much more offensive looking.
I'm not voting. Strike that from
I'm not a voting member, so that's just my observation. Could I ask a question?
But can I just one more question, if I may?
Go ahead.
And I'm sure it's out there for the people, the neighbors. You haven't talked about any provisions that you will make to preserve the quality of the place. What kind of maintenance, management will be in place to see that, everything looks great the first day, but 5 years later, things have gone to pot. What provisions have you made for managing the property and maintaining its appearance?
Yeah, good question. So the vast majority of, as Tari mentioned, the sidewalks and generally the sort of public infrastructure, a lot of the common green, the areas that will need to be maintained, those are included in what we're calling Phase 1, which is associated with Buildings 1 and Buildings 2. So those areas will all be managed by POA Communities, which is POA's affiliate management company. They manage every unit that we develop and own, and so this would fall in line with sort of any other typical multifamily property that we own and maintain. So it would all be taken care of. We'd have third-party contracts with qualified vendors, snow plowing, landscaping, maintenance. All of it would be covered under the Phase 1 management.
There'd be no management site, on site, no management?
There is a management space in Building 2.
Sorry, I'm not voting. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds here, but I do want to, I guess I need to ask a question, and anyone can answer it from the housing side, is at what point do we have enough? The reason I say that is that many years ago, over 30 years ago, when I was a member of the Brewster Board of Selectmen, the school committee folks came in and said that we needed to build a second elementary school. I questioned the demographics at the time. Being a real estate agent, I was kind of familiar with the trends, and I was assured that all of the studies suggested we had to have the second elementary school, and I endorsed it. Anybody that's been around a while knows that Brewster's been trying to figure out what to do with that second elementary school for a number of years, and they can't do anything because they got a bond that requires it to continue to be a school for the life of the bond. We have Rock Harbor Village, we have Tonsett Woods, we have the Cape Cod 5, we have the 107 Main Street, and now we're going, all of which are rental units. I'm delighted to see that there are 17 properties that are going to be conveyed here. I think that's something that we need a lot more of. But knowing that Wellfleet has finally started building affordable housing, Chatham's starting to build affordable housing, Orleans is certainly ahead of this, leading the pack on that. Harwich is building affordable housing. I don't want, the Cape's becoming a really, really crowded place. We all understand that we need affordable housing for local residents, but I would hate to look back, 10 or 20 years from now and find that we built affordable housing that's really going to be attractive to people off Cape because we've met the need here. Do we know how many we actually need compared to what's being built and what's being projected to be built? Mark wants it answered.
Yeah, for the back, please. The Selectman Mark Matheson.
Mark Matheson, forgive me for intruding on the discussion at this point in time, but I just think that question needs to be dealt with. When this project was first brought forward to the town meeting years ago, we had 300 affordable units in the town of Orleans. We had Rock Harbor Village, we had Tonsett Woods. 280 of those 300 units were age and disability restricted. There was no place for a working person, a young family, a kid that grew up and went to school here. No place for them other than Avalar Circle that was 2 and 3 bedroom family homes. I think there were 8 of them there. 280 age-restricted, disability-restricted out of 300 units. So we've added 60 on West Road. We added 14 at 107 Main Street. So now we have an opportunity to have 60 more plus 17 homeownership units. When we had the Governor Prince Advisory Committee met after the town bought the property, we heard from residents, we heard from business owners in this community, we heard from young people in this community, and they all said the same thing. We need a place for the local people to live. We need a place for the working people in our restaurants, in our stores, in our community to live. This is what Governor Prince was supposed to be and will be. One other quick digression. The conversation about parking. I understand that. But you know, we just passed an overlay district in downtown. We have been talking for years and years and years in this community about having a walkable downtown village that could thrive commercially, that could be a space for people to live and walk throughout the town. Governor Prince was a poster child for housing, for young families, for working people. You can walk to Stop and Shop, TJ Maxx, Goose Hummock, Town Cove, 3 different town parks, the elementary school, the library, the middle school, the downtown restaurants and shops. You can walk everywhere, on the sidewalk, on the bike path. A walking village, you don't need to have as many cars and parking spaces. The whole point was to make it something that we could look at as a neighborhood that could help the downtown thrive, that could give our local people and workers a place to live. So have we got too much housing here yet? No. We don't need a whole lot more of the 30%, 50%, 60% AMI housing because we can't fill that with Orleans residents now. But those 2 and 3 bedroom apartments, the 2 and 3 bedroom home ownership buildings, that's what we desperately need for the people that grew up here, for the people that work here, the people that want to stay here, that are being forced out of town, forced off the Cape every single day.
I don't disagree with you, Mark. My question was, do we have an overall idea of how much housing we're going to need? The units at the Cape Cod 5, you can walk to all those stores too. I would be very happy with this project. It's just gonna get approved, don't worry about it. I'm not voting on it. I'd be very happy if the whole thing were consisted of buildings 3, 4, and the 7 units. At some point, with all that's in the works for housing, I just worry we're gonna go beyond what Orleans needs. At the Cape Cod 5, that's a big project. How many of them are people that work and live in Orleans?
They all live in Orleans now.
No, you know my question. How many lived in Harwich and worked in Orleans? I mean, we need some answers to these questions, Mark. It's a legitimate question. We're on the same page. You know, I appreciate, you're not gonna get any sympathy from me about growing up on Cape Cod. You know that. I've got kids too. We're playing the same violin there, but I just worry that we're gonna build housing that misses the mark. That's all.
Well, you know, I think you'll see this is probably the last project of this size in the town of Orleans because the land is not available for big projects anymore.
And for that reason, I'm fairly comfortable with it. But
And
my
I think,
question
you know,
was,
the
what-
incentive that we looked at with the overlay district was to have the private developers look at ways that, you know, you don't have to use town money. You can guarantee they get the developments that they want by making it year-round and attainable. So it's not more Airbnbs, it's not more second homes, and it's not more super low-income properties that, you know, the town doesn't need more of that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I can just add.
Let me I just want to say one thing to the board, and that is, we'll have a second chance to do this. At the end of this meeting, we'll all be able to opine and ask questions. And I'm looking at the audience, it's getting late, and I'm sure a lot of these people have come to testify also. And some of them representing, I'm sure, other boards in the town. So what I'd like to do is with the board's indulgence, sort of end this part, which is the board's questionings,
Yeah.
then go on to hearing from other people in the audience and maybe the general public.
Can we go back to the board's questioning?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
I mean,
thank you.
We have that, we have the last.
Sure.
I understand that, but there.
And some of the questions we might want to ask now may be asked by other people here and vitiate the need.
Mr. Chairman, appreciate that. Could we just have one quick comment from Dave, just while that question is fresh in people's
Certainly.
minds?
Absolutely.
Real brief,
I
thank you.
just wanted to respond. Happy to pull together some stats from recent projects we've done, both in Orleans and around the Cape to give you some context on that. I can tell you off the top of my head, at 107 Main Street, we had 500 applicants for 14 units. We just recently finished the complete lease up, and it's 80% of the units are local.
Just to quickly segue on Bob, can this be made for Orleans residents, since it was an Orleans agreement that the town entered into with the three of you?
The town can request a local preference, so the town can make a request to EOHLC that up to 70% of the units have a local preference, meaning that they would be designated for residents of Orleans, people who work in Orleans, or families that have children in the school system.
I think that's important.
And we would agree to a condition to that effect, and just to be clear, it's for the initial rent-up. And then Dave can compile other statistics, but yes, it's very routine, and I haven't heard of EOHLC not approving the local lottery.
Yeah, okay. Austin, I'm going to call on Austin to expand on a previous question.
Jerry had asked about the management of the site, and there's discussion about buildings 1 and 2 in the first phase. The plans for buildings 3 and 4, I assume, is some sort of a condominium type development. For buildings 5 through 11, as those are subdivided into their own lots, will those also have some sort of a homeowners association associated due to some of the shared resources, some of the the upkeep of the driveways leading to it that are not actually on the lots themselves?
There will be various cross easements. I don't know if Habitat would, or has thought about it, or if you would have a homeowners association. In some ways it makes sense, but I don't know if you can answer that.
We typically wouldn't have one for the 7 homes, but because it's part of the larger property, that'll be a discussion we'll have to have in the future with Poet and Hack. But
Okay.
they're responsible for their own homes as home ownership. But yeah, there's the shared areas that we have to work through
Yeah,
in
so-
an association, like a master association.
Thank you. For buildings 3 and 4, as they share walls, they look to be more traditional townhome, condominium styles. I guess my question is kind of an extension of that, is will there be some sort of a homeowners association associated with
yes.
that? And will the 3 developers that are party to this project, will they be stakeholders in that HOA? Will they facilitate it? Will they be board members, participants? I'm just curious, what sort of control, oversight do these condominiums have for things like shared use, garbage disposal, things that HOAs typically clean up in general?
Exactly. There would definitely be a condominium association for those condo homeownership units, buildings 3, buildings 3 and 4. In terms of management, I don't know if they would avail themselves of the management that's going to be through POA's management division. It's logical, but there would have to be reciprocal agreements because of those shared facilities. Details such as would they share rubbish pickup, I certainly don't know, but they can talk about it, probably have, and perhaps give you more feedback next time.
Okay. Yeah, I think one of the things I'm primarily interested in is HOA dues and plans for reserves and what the management plan would look like for long-term capital and spending for the HOA. In the town of Orleans, there's a varying level of reserves for HOAs, and just making sure that we have a plan or something in place that will ensure that this project will be long-term successful from an upkeep shared facility perspective.
Happy to share that,
We'll
yeah.
do that. And I can tell you real quick that on the rental side, that the regulatory agreements with the subsidizing agency and the lenders, mandate pretty hefty reserves. So
Okay.
we can give you more details next time as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
I'd like to now open the hearing for any representatives from any of the town agencies, boards, committees who'd like to either question the applicants or opine on the program. Please.
Hi, Joan Francolini from the Community Preservation group. I would just like to say, and I also live right near John Avila Circle. For many years, the CPC has been trying to get a playground and a basketball court at John Avila Circle. There are a lot of kids there that have nothing to do. I would love to see you add some better play space in there. They're currently playing in the parking lot, and I think it's what you said before. The kids are naturally going to go to the parking lot unless there's another space. So I would love you to consider increasing the opportunity for the youth that are going to be living there. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else from the town representing any of the agencies or committees? Great, okay. I'd like to close that portion of the hearing and now open it up to the general public. Is there anyone here tonight that wishes to speak or question the applicants? Please. Well, either one of you both. Come on. Yeah, please.
Hi, I'm Jamie Demas. I live at 5.
What's the last name, please?
Demas. I live at 5 Hinkle Lane in Orleans.
Very good,
Yeah,
thank
I have a number of questions. I mean, my first one was related to what Mr. Higgins suggested about petitioning the state. I mean, clearly this isn't going to get resolved today. This is a long-term process, so I would love to hear a commitment from the board that you will petition the state for the safe harbor, because 15 days, I mean, it's not going to be resolved, right? So,
No, I think that's not correct. We can continue this hearing for longer periods without.
We don't, this hearing can go on until, until the end of the summer.
okay. And there's still an ability to petition the state at the end?
No,
Because I thought I heard 15 days from the
In order to
start.
receive the safe harbor designation, we have to petition the state within 15 days.
Of the start.
Yes.
Which
That's
is
the way-
today,
Is that
right?
correct, Elizabeth?
So that's today. So you only have 15 days. Am I,
No, so what's your end game?
my point just is, we don't know what the outcome is going to be unless you've already decided that this is going to get approved. So we need the safe harbor in case we decide we don't want to approve all of these waivers that they're requesting, right? Unless you've already decided you're going to approve all the waivers exactly as
No, we haven't
submitted.
even gotten to the waivers. I think what's
Okay.
important is that, as Elizabeth Jenkins explained in her presentation, this has been an ongoing process from town meeting when we purchased the property, what it was going to be used for, and we're moving forward. What we're going to be trying to do is improve it to the point that we feel that it can be approved. We're not,
I understand that. I'm just saying, what would be the downside to making the petition? It's just a contingency.
I don't know, Elizabeth, would you like to answer that?
Can I just make a point of clarification? Our next ZBA meeting, if this is continued to it, is within 15 days. It is 14 days from today, just to clarify.
We don't know the process to get the safe harbor designation. Would someone in the audience like to help us with that?
So again, I think in the case of a 40B, which is filed without LIP approval, as this one is a so-called friendly 40B, and I will admit, I have never petitioned for safe harbor status. We just reached that 11% mark last year here officially in the town of Orleans. So this is a little bit of a new process for all of us. But again, to apply that safe harbor status to this process, you do essentially have to send a transmission up to the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. And again, what you are securing is a pathway for denial. I think, as the applicants have said, this has been a community-driven process along the way in which we have put a lot of time and resources. And if you read that 40B manual you got from the Massachusetts Housing Partnership, denial really is a last case resort in any 40B application for a comprehensive permit. this hearing really is more about negotiating with the applicant in terms of creating a development which is consistent with our local needs, again, in terms of all of the factors that we had talked about earlier.
The answer to your question, ma'am, is that there is a presumption we are going to approve this project, and this process is really to refine it and make it respond to questions that are raised in this
Okay.
process.
Okay. I mean, because I mean, from my perspective, there's just a lot of waivers, variances, whatever you want to call them, that are being requested here. And, you know, we, as taxpayers in this town, you know, whose tax dollars actually bought this property and that's being gifted here, like, we have zoning for a reason, because those are the values that we as citizens of Orleans want for our town. So for me, just all of these height variances, the sites being so close to the road, you know, all these things to me are just a step too far. I'm not saying I think the whole thing should be denied, but I'm saying if we don't have even the ability to push back on these waivers, then I thought maybe having the safe harbor would help us in that. Maybe I was wrong about that. I don't understand this process any better than the rest of us, it seems. Anyway, that was one question. My second question has to do with the drought. You know, obviously we're in a perpetual state of drought here on the Cape, and there's a huge lawn area there, which I mean, we're not allowed to water lawns, so I don't know if you've factored that into your planning for the lawns. We can't water all summer long, so that lawn probably won't survive the first summer. I also had a question related to the parking. Is there going to be permeable surfaces for the parking, or is this all going to be hard surfaced? All hard surfaces, okay. All right. Okay, the Habitat for Humanity homes, are those going to be deed restricted forever? That they will never be able to be short-term rented? Okay, that's great. Okay, lastly, I just want to say, like, lighting, I think, is really important for the town, and I know a lot of people are, you know, get pretty upset when new developments go in with huge bright lights. We're not fans of that, a lot of us who live in Orleans, so I hope that lighting is something that the committee is you know, prepared to talk about and, you know, get some limitations.
I presume that they do, this group has done projects all over Cape Cod, and lighting is an issue all over Cape Cod, so I presume, anybody want to answer that question? But I presume it is.
Yeah,
into.
I say we can certainly provide a photometric plan. I'm not sure if we have already.
We've done that, yes.
It
We
is,
have a
okay.
photometric plan, and that's been submitted with site plan review with fixture schedule as well.
We don't have those, might be nice to have those.
But maybe we could go over it in more detail at a future meeting.
Yeah, happy to go over, and
Yeah.
it's, site plan review.
Oh, okay, I didn't get those, where'd you get those?
Planning department.
All right, yes, sir.
I think she was
Oh,
I think I was first.
please, yeah.
Okay. I'm Stephanie Gaskill from 28 Poshet Road.
I'm sorry, what's your name again, please?
Stephanie
Yep.
Gaskill.
Thank you, Stephanie.
I thought it was interesting that although in the beginning they appeared to disagree with each other, what you did hear was that both Bob Wilkinson and Mark Matheson actually agreed with each other. I'm on a lot of committees in town. I'm not representing them with this comment, but a lot of those committees have people from the fire department, people from the police department, people from the DPW. And what Mark was talking about, that Bob also mentioned, was those are the people that we need housing for. Those are the people that do not fall into this large building one. And when we look at this plan, that is a massive building. And if it doesn't actually meet the need of what we really need in this town, which is what we really need, is we need housing for people who want to live here permanently, who want to be a part of our community, who aren't just going to rent for a year or two, but who really do become part of our community. Now, over in Yarmouth, I recently saw a development that they did called the Union Station Village. It's off Route 6A. And that has a beautiful setup with much less density than this, but actually does look like Cape Cod. And I'm just so afraid that what we're doing is we're putting high-density, massive buildings to meet numbers. And we don't even know if those numbers are going to be needed in the future. Harwich just approved 248 housing units for low-income housing. How much does the Cape actually need? So I really hope that when you look at this high-density housing, you consider what do we need for the people who actually live here, and do we really want this kind of structure, more of it in Orleans? Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Peter Haig, 9 Anchor Drive, Orleans. I'm architect at Architectural Design, which is probably the closest building to this project, directly adjacent to it towards Stop and Shop, part of the Galleria. I wanted to clarify something that was said earlier. This process, unfortunately, I'll just clarify, there was a number of us, architects in the area, who volunteered our time. John Kelsey, who some of you may know, Joy Cumming and myself volunteered our time to help lay out something that's way better than this. And the scale of it was intended to be smaller. I would also say we also showed how you could put a mix of affordable, like, the large A affordable housing, and then also affordable units, something that, people, my kids could live in. And then also you have an opportunity for more luxury housing. I would hate to call it luxury, but for, say, older folks who want to live and walk into town. So we showed how that would be, and we showed it to the people involved in the affordable housing group. I can tell you there was very little interest in anything other than what they were doing. So that to say that it's been really thought out and really, so it wasn't. Now here we are, okay? That the ship may have sailed, but I think we'll get back to the issue at hand. Building 1 and 2 were horrible. They could easily be. Let's just admit it. They're bad. They and if I would be willing to volunteer my time again to show you how you could make it look more like Cape Cod. Some of you may know of my work and know that that's something that we like to do. It's important to us. But we get groups from off the Cape who put on shingles or clapboards or board and batten or all the things that we do. But they don't necessarily know how to make it look like a Cape Cod building. This is not, now I could take it apart and describe, but it's not really worth it. I think it's really needs to be taken back on these two buildings, 1 and 2 in particular. If you also can imagine, I know people said the bike path is not important. That's an artery that brings lots of people into town. And we don't want the back of this thing looming over the bike path. I walk that all the time. I walked it with my dog again today, as I do almost every day. It's a beautiful, beautiful, special spot. And that slope in the back is going to be, well, it's just, I'm hoping that everybody in this board goes and walks behind there and sees what that is. This is not what you put there. And if you did, you'd step it down towards the street and take advantage of the fact that it was walkout. That's, in fact, what John Kelsey and Joy Cummings and myself worked out, the idea of town housing that you could take your bike and ride right out of the bike trail. There's so many opportunities with this, and we ignore it. So I don't know what to say about it, but at the very least, this needs to be broken down with a lot more detail and a lot more interest. You'll see that it's also, if you look at the plan or you look at the elevation, we don't see a plan of the interior, but you can tell that it was a center. It's probably mostly a center hall situation, which is the most efficient, of course, but it's also it's the least enjoyable. It's not Cape Cod living to have a long center hall. Anyway, the other thing, just on the fact that my office looks directly out at this, I am not against having high density. I've been promoting it all along, a higher density. But it needs to be done well. Let's do it well. This is not done well. The other thing I'd be in personal interest in is the trees along my property, that is 62 Route 6A, part of the Galleria building directly adjacent. Question about what's the idea? Are there any trees? There's lovely trees in there. It appears to me they're all gone, except for perhaps the perimeter. And I think it would need to be caution taken for neighbors like myself, and I'm happy to talk to the landscape architects about, we have a severe drop off from that property down into ours. I'd really like that hill not to collapse. It would be in our back door of my back door and Ben Zender's office. I think we would appreciate if that didn't happen. So anyway, and I'll leave it at that, and I wish you well. But my offer stands to work with the architects to help them make this better, because it certainly can be. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Ed Pepin. I live on 7 Richardson Lane here in Orleans. And I first started to come to the Cape in the 70s, and I had a feeling for what John Kennedy thought about our quintessential Cape Cod when he developed our national seashore. And being in Massachusetts all my life, I've known that we're trained to expect a little bit of loss of our quality of life every year. And I've seen that. Now, I wasn't able to buy a house down here until the 80s, because Orleans has always been an expensive town. When I bought my house in the 80s, you had to be in the right place in the right time to buy something under $200,000. And when you figure inflation in now, that amount is pretty much consistent with where we are today. It wasn't the birth rate on Cape Cod that created a housing crisis. It wasn't the mass exodus of people around Boston that created the housing crisis. So to the extent that it does exist, we've met our obligations. We've met our obligations. Now, POA talks about their management and their skill in adapting to Cape Cod. You're from Wellfleet. What I want you to do is go up and take a look at their property called Lawrence Hill and see how they think that looks like Cape Cod. It's right behind the police station, and I think you're going to see, when you see these things on paper that look like one thing, but you get one thing, but you see them in real life, it's astounding. You think, how could anybody ever approve this? This is terrible. You know, Ms. Demas mentioned the drought. We don't have enough water for any more development. We've been in a drought for 14 to 15 years. When we go to town meeting, we're very virtuous. We'll pass anything to protect the environment. But when it comes to affordable housing, we seem to forget our environment. Our environment here in Cape Cod, the way climate changes, is we have less water every year. It's a little warmer, a little more breeze, a little more evaporation. Look around the ponds now. By definition, being in a severe drought means you can't support the population you have now. Now, just supposing someone came to us, the same group, and said, I want to build a replica of Donald Trump Tower, Trump Towers, right here in Cape Cod. 600 units. It's going to solve all your problems. Think about it. That would have the same objections this does. It'd be a massive building. We don't know how many units we need. It would also want the same variance, not only for height, but for density. But that's not an exaggeration, because we have to look at the total of our affordable housing. This is just a start. Remember, in the overlay district, one of the things that was said at town meeting was they want 500 more units. 500. This 73 and that 500 would equal Trump Tower. It's never too late to say no.
Thank you, Mr. Peppin.
Okay, one other point. Anything that can be done in this project can be done by our housing authority. The reason you have a POA, or an NGO rather, non-governmental organization, the reason a developer wants to do that is because you have no idea how to audit it. A housing authority you can audit. Like, for instance, Selectmen's budget, 1.7 million. You can audit that and find out every single dime where that is. Housing authority, you have no idea. The other things, they'll talk a good game, they'll tell you it's going to be for the town residents, they'll tell you anything, but you can't enforce it. No one's going to enforce it. With the housing authority, which we have, an elected body, you can enforce it. So there's no pressing need to take action on this. I would urge you to file that notice. So if you're going to approve it, you're going to have leverage. But I would say at some point in time, this is just not a good project. I want you to think in terms of preservation of John Kennedy. Make sure this provides what Cape Cod needs and not massive buildings. And the reason they don't want you to think about variances, because these would never meet the requirements of variances. So if you look at your handout that the building inspector gave to you, one of the things you're going to talk about is 40B in terms of your zoning board. They're only designed to have technical and timing type of waivers. Not these substantive, massive height and intensity regulations.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pepin, that's great. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Sir, please.
Bill Weeble, 65 Keziahs Lane. I should have stood earlier. I represent the Orleans Historical Commission, and I would just like whoever develops this to understand that there will necessarily, by size, be an archaeological review of that property, just for indigenous. So just be aware that we don't know what went on that property 1,000 or 2,000 years ago, but certainly our local tribal council will want some say. So, thank you.
Maybe they'll find it was affordable housing. But thank you for that comment, and I'm sure will be something they do. Anyone else wishing to speak? Is there anyone out in the virtual world with their hand raised?
No hands raised.
No hands raised. Okay.
Jerry, could I just ask Elizabeth a question?
Yeah, please.
Elizabeth, regarding the safe harbor, since the town worked hard to get to that point, why don't we just automatically get that granted to us? Is that a blanket thing that we can get accepted?
So again, I'll admit to not having firsthand experience, but I don't believe so. I believe, again, it's a petition that you make to EOHLC, and then they review your subsidized housing inventory and decide whether or not you are granted that safe harbor status. I certainly defer to Attorney Freeman. He might have more expertise or experience on this.
Reading this, it seems to
particularly.
suggest that if we have safe harbor status, then we sort of have absolute control. So it seems to me that if that's available, just as a resident and a taxpayer, I'd like to see us have it.
So again, I think what it means is that if it is appealed to housing assistance, it's not a presumptive denial by the state authority who reviews these appeals.
What it actually says is that if we have safe harbor and we, I'll try and find it here, that if we have a safe harbor status and we deny a project, I don't think anybody's talking about denying the
Understood.
project, that HAC, I think they call themselves,
Yes.
will not
So actually, I
overrule it.
think it's not, so it is not appealable to HAC.
Right, so it seems to me we should have that status, that's all. Could you look into that for us?
So Elizabeth, oftentimes, or George, oftentimes, the 15 days, it may be that we just need to apply. And if we apply within the 15 days, that gets us into the review. I think it would be worthwhile to determine whether the application, receipt of the application qualifies us, or if acceptance of the application qualifies us. Because we don't know that.
Let's put the elephant on the table here. The elephant on the table is this is a proposal the town is supporting. We are an agency of the town, and we're given authority by the state law to try to make modifications in it. But we'll be appealing the town's application. In other words, this is the ZBA saying we don't agree with the town's application, and the selectmen have put money behind this. We bought this property with the idea of making, I think our role here is to try to work with the proposal and make it acceptable to us. It's very awkward where you have, I don't know who's gonna, you have the town council make the case? Town council works for the town. This is the town's, is a friendly proposition. The town has brought these people forward as their agents to present, to preserve, to create affordable housing.
Jerry,
But I just want to make sure everybody understands the awkwardness that we're in.
no, I appreciate that, and I don't think we're talking about denying it. And first of all, I'm looking at page 15 of the guide and it says, safe harbor, in other words, what I'm going to read shows we've missed the boat. For the purpose of Chapter 40B, safe harbor refers to conditions under which a ZBA's decision to deny a comprehensive permit will qualify as consistent with local needs and not be overturned by the HAC, provided the conditions were met prior to the date that the comprehensive permit was filed with the ZBA. We haven't done that, so I think that's my observation about it, but.
Jerry, if I
so-
may?
Yeah, please.
I believe that I'm with Bob, I agree with him totally, because we have nothing to lose.
Well, it just gives us a bargaining, I think it's boiling down to the massing of those two buildings. I think we've heard it from everybody, and it gives us a bargaining chip. Not that, I agree with you, we're not gonna deny this, but it'd be nice if we had the ability to do that if this group couldn't come back with buildings 1 and 2 that fit more with the site.
Correct, and then also, because we don't know exactly the time frame that we need to do this by, and the next time we meet, it'll be 14 days, I would think that we should act on it, vote if we need to vote tonight.
Yeah, okay, let's explore some more, though. I guess, let's step back. How is this, someone should explain to us how in the air has been, Bob and Mark talked about the kind of need that we need in this town, and that is for working families, basically, and not people at 30% of the AMI. That's not a working family. And so I guess the first question is, how do we arrive at this is the need, this definition is the need? That's the first question. How is this mix of housing chosen as the ideal mix for this location? Isn't that the first question? Isn't that the primary question? Because if you have if you had a different mix, you have a very different looking project.
So I think it would be probably more appropriate to come back to you with some of the numbers and the data that is in our 10-year housing action plan and our 10-year housing needs assessment. But that assessment clearly lays out that we are, and the number was properly cited, 500 to 600 units short of year-round housing over the next 10 years in this community to meet our own community's needs. We simply have not built enough housing for people who are living within our community. The select board has a stated goal of creating 350 new housing units over the next 10 years, 150 of those which should be affordable housing, as is demonstrated by the rental components of this project. A four-person household at 80% AMI is earning $112,000 a year, $113,000 a year. So certainly even those who are within the affordable components of this project are working families here in Orleans, and as stated, for projects where we have had local preference in the past, we've seen applications in the range of 600 units coming from the lower and outer Cape communities. So I think, again, certainly we can do a little bit more work and put those numbers on the record, but I think our housing production plan, our housing needs assessment clearly demonstrates that this project is consistent with local needs relative to affordable housing.
But does that factor in, again, what's happening in Howard with 200 and odd units? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so again, we've built primarily a single housing type across the Cape for decades now, and we haven't focused on this type of housing. The median price of a single family home in Orleans is $1.2 million. So the ability for a young family, a working family to be able to buy in this community just does not exist anymore in the way it used to traditionally. So maybe now a young family or a working family lives in a building that looks like the one you have on the screen and not a single family home like you did traditionally. And having quality, stable housing that's in close proximity to the job in which you work in, it is, again, a priority. And I think larger than the housing needs, as we look at our comprehensive plan, as we look at our select board goals, I think the town of Orleans has clearly stated it over and over that we desire to be a year-round community. Yes. And that is, again, I think what we continue to lose. And I think in order to reestablish that, we need a variety of housing at different types and different incomes. And this project, in terms of all these other ones we've cited, is very unique in that it has, housing that serves 30% AMI to housing that serves 200% AMI. And I think that's one of the reasons why this project stood out to the town as we were going through that community-driven process to establish what we thought should go here.
I guess my feeling is that what the town really needs right now is housing for the 200% that meets that requirement.
Could I inject one thing into that? Just germane. So you've talked tonight about us being at 11% affordability, which gives us that safe harbor opportunity. The state goal is 10% affordability town. What you need to think about is, as we look at, again, trying to create that 200% AMI, that attainable workforce housing, the missing middle housing, the opportunities that we've created in the downtown for year-round attainable housing with our overlay district. As we create more of that housing, if we don't also add in some of that 30%, 60% AMI housing, we will slip out of that 10% affordability range. We'll go backwards. If everything that we build as we go forward, as all these new buildings that we, new home ownership opportunities that we create are not in that 80% or less AMI range, then we're going to lose that 11%. We might get below 10% again, and then be subject to hostile 40Bs.
I agree 100%.
So we
Art,
need to
but
add
it
some,
it doesn't necessarily need to look like this.
not arguing that point. I'm just saying, you know,
Well, I think that's the,
what I'm saying is we still need to have some of those lower level AMI units, even though our primary goal is to get the attainable workforce, middle housing in this town, so people can live here year-round, work here year-round. In terms of what you want to do and how you want to negotiate designs, that's your purview. But I just think we need to get away from this idea that, oh, we don't need any more low income. We don't need a whole lot of it, but we need to make sure we maintain that 10% proportion.
What is the definition of project, of units that meet that 10% definition? What is
Well, that's units up to the 80% of AMI.
up to 80%?
Up to the 80% AMI, yeah.
And your new overlay, as your select board member just said, is up to 200%. So I was thinking the same thing, that there's a reasonable chance that you could go back below the 10%, which is why projects like this to us, and I think to you, make sense.
Every time we add a unit over 80%.
That's right.
We're slipping down to that 10,
That's right.
But it's one out of 10. You know, I mean, you get 9 that are the attainable, affordable,
Yeah, right.
year-round.
1/10.
All you need is 1.
1/10, yeah.
So we just need to keep that in mind. So, thank you.
Any comment?
Yeah, please, Austin.
I fully believe that additional housing at all of these income levels is absolutely necessary. I think one of the things that is, you know, an issue here is just general supply. You know, the fact that they might not all be the 200% AMI that would support some of the, you know, what some of the folks here presented as being the, you know, working class, you know, married family with kids. Having the additional availability will reduce pressure in general. It will absolutely bring in people from other towns. I do think that it would be a good idea to try and add a provision for the 70% that you had mentioned for, you know, folks who are already residing and living and working and or have kids in the town. But I would challenge the opposition to having all of the, you know, 30, 60, 80%, because I do think that there are families that are currently living at home with their parents. You know, kind of the Cape Cod classic of you live in your parents' house until you inherit it. And those folks who, you know, can afford to live in their parents' house in a place with friends and with roommates may not have jobs that would put them over that 30%. They may work part-time. They may work, you know, in some industries that just don't have the full, you know, year-round seasonality that you need to actually get up into those upper thresholds. So I think having some things that are protective of that for the folks who will allow them to actually, you know, become more independent, allow them to live in town, I think is very important. And I'm not as much in fear of there being, you know, going below that 10%. And I'm, you know, generally in support of this project. I just want to make it clear that I think there is a drastic need for these lower AMIs and not just the 200%.
Okay, appreciate that.
I could just
Mr. Patton,
indulge
if
for a minute.
it's something new, please, because
Something new, I'll give you something new.
please, and
All
brief,
right.
and brief.
Brief. Taxation. One of the things we're supposed to preserve in this town is our resources. Yes, these units will be taxed, but in the same rate as other rental units, but they're taxed at the subsidized level. So the taxpayers are always going to be subsidizing them. Here's an example. So,
No, but that's a given, we all understand that.
All right.
Everybody understands that when you have a
All right.
subsidized unit, the people who are in the big houses are paying more than the people in the little houses.
yeah, right. You're paying at the subsidized rate. And also, the other thing is the cost of education. Last year, we brought in, with this new housing, 29 new students at $41,000 apiece. That was an additional $1.2 million we had to pay.
I think it's wonderful that we have more kids in the town.
1.2 million.
Don't bring any kids into the town. Let them all move away.
All right, that's good. Give it a-
Okay,
Sure.
maybe I'm the last one here. I'd like to end it on a positive note.
That'd be
Tim
great.
Tim
That'd be great.
Coonahan, 23 Herringbrook Way. I'm all in favor of this project. One of the problems, in fact, I would have advocated for more units on this property. The problem you're having is that you're going to put this many units on the property, you got to have big buildings. And I think they're nicely situated in the back of the property. I think you're maintaining a nice frontage on 6A. I'm all in favor of it. We've got half of the people working in town commuting from over the bridge, right? We've got to have workforce housing, and workforce housing isn't 200%. There are plenty of people that are in retail or bagging groceries or whatever, or doing your landscaping that are making 50%, 70%, 80% of AMI. So we need the housing. We need to have younger folk in town. We're going to gentrify ourselves out of existence if we don't bring any youngsters in here. So.
Thank you, sir. All right. Mr. Hague, one more comment? A new comment?
I'll be brief. I think it's essential that the parking get moved away from these buildings so you can put some mature trees in front of them. That's one. And secondly, I think we need to make sure building 1 and 2 does not look like affordable housing. I wouldn't want my grandkids to live in that house, that building. And I think most of you wouldn't want your grandchildren living in there, and you want them to have access to the outside and be much more of a friendly building. I think we can do way better. So I encourage the architects to do so.
Thanks, Mr. Hague. Okay, it seems to me we are at a important crossroads here. So it seems we have two choices: to protect ourselves because we don't think we can work with the. It seems to me to go for the safe harbor means that we don't think we can work with this group satisfactorily enough to change the project that we like to our liking. Okay? And we need to go the extra step of taking a position against the town and seeking a safe harbor to assure that we have the clout to effectuate what we want. Is that a fair expression of that position?
No.
No.
No, I felt that we should have a safe harbor. If it's something that we qualify for, we should just have it.
Why?
Because if somebody comes in with a really outrageous proposal, we can just say no.
It would only apply, it wouldn't apply to anything else. You'll have to deal with it each
Apply to
time.
this project.
It has to apply to, so we would need one for each
Yes,
project.
yeah.
Okay, I stand corrected. All right, so we don't need it.
Well, we do. Maybe we do. I don't know.
I don't think we do.
The question is, do we feel, let me ask the applicant, what kind of room do you have to maneuver in terms of reducing this mass of the building 1 and 2?
I can answer, and then my colleagues can also supplement. And it's not just mere words, but our track record together, my track record in other communities on the Cape and all over the state, is to absolutely respect the zoning board, to respect the town, to respect the neighbors, and to work indeed with all of those folks, and especially with the team here and all of the history that you've heard several times on this project. I can't think of a better team that would absolutely work with you. That said, I'm not trying to kid anybody or say, oh, sure, we can make the architectural changes that will absolutely satisfy some of the speakers or you folks. But I can tell you earnestly that, you're not going to need the safe harbor to negotiate with us. The safe harbor would give you the luxury of being able to deny or to put onerous conditions on, but that would kill the project. So I can tell you that we would absolutely work with you. And the architect is very creative. I've worked with them. Some of the suggestions are positive. So I am no way trying to just say, oh, sure, we'll make it fine. That's not realistic. But absolutely, this team will work with you through all the other boards that are involved in advising you. And of course, directly with you.
Thanks, Mr. Freeman. So I guess the question is, to the applicant, if it's obvious to reduce the mass of these two buildings, you're gonna have to shrink the number of affordable units. Is there any other way to effectuate that?
Well, I'll turn it over to Paul, not to put you on the spot, but to put you on the spot, you know, because it's true. You know, it would be difficult to reduce the number of units.
Since no one likes this building, I'm going to go to a better image for us to all look at.
I don't mind it for the record.
Because we are in questions, right? So, oops. Those are just, whoopsie. All right, let's go to that. It doesn't matter. To answer your question, I wasn't going to show anything on the screen, is I think the number of units is completely dependent on the development pro forma, which we haven't even talked about yet, and I think we should, because that is a real reality to what we're proposing here today. And the two buildings constitute the rental low-income housing tax credit portion of it. That is an animal all separate from what HAC is trying to do with the townhouse home ownerships for 10 units and what Habitat for Humanity is trying to do for the single family. The range of housing types is unprecedented in a project of this scale. It's only 78 units. It's not that much. And a lot of it is in the two buildings. But as the gentleman just said in support of it, we need to consider larger buildings to make the housing that the town needs. And the town has suggested and put out the RFP, put in the support, and has gotten us to this point in time. And as Mr. Freeman said, our team works with all the boards that we have been before, and we will continue to revise it and refine it. And we'll come back with some answers and some suggestions. Some you may not like, some you will like, we hope. And we'll get to, I think, a proposal and a development that the town is going to be very proud of, and will be not, as that architect said, terrible. I took a lot of offense for that, because Union Studio has helped Cape Cod Commission and other communities. We studied this particular site many times, once with the town of Orleans and once with the Cape Cod Commission, to look at areas and prime real estate, prime land where we can do good, build well, build considerable, with consideration. So I'm getting a little emotional about this, because what I'm hearing is an initial slap in the face before we even have a discussion. So I hope that we move forward with everyone's open minds, open eyes, and a conversation, and then make the decision if we can't get to a consensus.
So, my comments aren't necessarily on the number of units, it's on the massing itself. I mean, you have the opportunity, you can step sections forward more, step sections back more. It's the overall massing of these structures that bothers me.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you considered building one, for instance, just splitting it into two buildings?
Yes, we
Separating them a
actually
little?
talked about that from very early in the project. And as I mentioned, POA has a real desire and commitment to providing accessibility and visibility to all their units that they develop. That means that it has to be elevator served. So building one has an elevator and building two has an elevator. As soon as we split building one into two, we have two elevators, 4 sets of stairs, everything doubles. Another walls, exterior. So we're really working on a pro forma that I hope POA can really get into and talk about the financing of it, because we're working with a lot of constraints that has to pencil out, and that the EOHLC and the state funding and financiers look at and will say, yes, we will commit monies to this. It has to pencil out somehow. So that's one of the, I think, the trade-offs that we're willing to talk about and look at again.
Well, I'm the lucky one because I'm not voting on this. But I worry that, especially building one, building two troubles me more because of the hip roof. But the nice thing about that one is that you're gonna be looking at the gable end from Route 6. The other one, I worry that when that gets built, the town residents are going to say, what was the ZBA thinking? That's a big, big building, but if that's what it has to be, it's up to the voting members to decide if they want to do it.
Jerry, could I also add something to that? In terms of the volume, without even, like, I appreciate the pitched roof because that is more Cape Cod-like rather than flat. But I don't even see where, without eliminating the number of units, the center areas, it looks like that's probably just attic space, correct? Between the two gable ends of building one, like you have massing, and in the middle, it looks like there's an opportunity where instead of having so much attic space, I realize you have solar panels, but if you were to lower that down, I mean, there's a lot of things that one could do architecturally to reduce the volume of building one.
Yes.
Without really changing the number of units you have in
Right.
there.
Mhm. No, I agree. I think that's the refinement that we're talking about, and we'll explore that. I think the economics of making more buildings, breaking, let's say, this one to 4 buildings to make it smaller, and building 2 to 2 buildings, I think that one is, do we have the room to do it and accommodate it? Economics is definitely a factor, and what the POA's goals are for the residents that are going to be living here. Again, accessibility, comfort, and there's a lot of, in your packet, you'll see that there's a lot of great basement space for storage, bike storage, amenities that we really haven't talked about today. So there's a benefit for, within the building, although it's big, a lot of it's hidden, and it has a lot of benefits to the function of the building.
Because I would rather see buildings that that is standing with pride, rather than trying to, where we have to put trees, plant trees, so we're hiding it. It needs, and in the windows even, as, it's just too repetitious, it's almost, it looks kind of like, I don't mean to insult you at all in any ways, and I know that it's easier to do certain things, but when I was looking at the floor plans and where the windows are, you could definitely do something more interesting rather than it looking kind of like a prison where it's just so repetitious, the same thing. It needs refinement, in other words.
Sure.
Gary, one last
Yeah.
observation, and then I'm done. Is the traffic study committee, is traffic study appropriate here? That new rotary isn't terribly popular, and this is gonna add a lot of traffic right next to it.
There was one included in the longer application there from,
was a
I believe it was Ty and
traffic
Bond had done the,
Yeah, we have submitted that, yeah.
yeah, it seemed quite comprehensive.
And we can happily present on that at the next hearing or whenever you would like.
You had a number of solar panels on building 1.
Correct.
Do you need that many in order to do whatever you're trying to do with solar generation? Because if you didn't need that many, you could bring it down, you bring the roof line down, I would think.
Well, the number, we're trying to maximize the amount of solar
Yeah,
PV panels that we can accommodate on the site. We have not done the calculations of loads to PV design yet. It's really a placeholder. So that we won't know till we get funded and we get the go-ahead to do the construction document. So I don't even think we'll even have that answer for you by the time this process is done. So
is there any way to lengthen the building to bring it down? I don't know.
well, again, breaking it into 2 might lengthen it, because now if you,
No, I'm saying keep it 1, but
I don't know if that's gonna be any better.
I don't know.
Then you'll end up with Governor Prince Motel right there.
Okay. Austin.
This is my last thing, I promise. Related to massing, do you know the approximate distance between the setback from the rail trail itself to building 1? Whether that's the closest average, it looks like it's slightly angled away. I'm just thinking from like a reference point, one of the points that was brought up was visibility and, massing from Cape Cod Rail Trail. I also walk that area quite frequently, and I'm very familiar with the current Governor Prince view from that property. I'm also very familiar with the condominiums on Old Colony Way, which are approximately, very rough Google Maps measurement, approximately 80 feet from the bike path. And so we just get some sort of a comparison of the distance. It looks like it's on the order of 60 feet. Just to provide a reference to some of the folks who are in opposition from the view from the bike path, is that it's maybe commensurate with other condominiums that are 3+ stories in the immediate area, approximately a quarter mile away.
I would have to do some research to see what the neighborhood looks like and compare that, but I can tell you that the proposed building one, the closest corner, is just about to 19.9 feet from the property line, so almost 20 feet from the property line. The bike path is then set back. The actual travel bike path is actually set back. It looks like, I don't have a scale on it, but it might be another 40 feet.
Yeah, it lines with, I eyeball measured on this. I think that would be useful information to have just to help with the massing discussion is, again, compared to other properties in the very nearby area, it may not be out of family.
Okay, what I'd like to do, I would like to address two things. I would like to first just make it clear that even though this is our first part of the hearing, and it's obviously we have to continue this hearing, that the 15 days starts tolling today.
Correct.
That's unfortunate.
Can I say something?
Please, yeah.
Joan Francolini, 7 Barney Way. I only heard about this meeting because I am the chair of the CPC, and I sent my emails to a bunch of people. I think it's a great presentation. I think all the work you did is really fabulous. I've been involved with this for a long time. And you're only hearing from some of the community members, and I think a lot more community members should get to see this presentation. Because it wasn't on the calendar as a separate item. It was sort of just in the ZBA notes, and maybe it was in a newspaper, but most of us don't read the back of the newspaper anymore to see what's going on, nor do we get the newspaper. But I think for due diligence, so the ZBA is not the one in the spot that says, who approved that big building? We don't like that. Everyone has opinions. I was on the library design committee. Everyone had an opinion, beyond an opinion. But I just think to have the town feel like they're part of it, it would be good for the town, not the ZBA, to present this in a forum that you're not just getting a few people giving input and changing things because of some loud people that were speaking up against it. And I would apologize to the architect because I do think he was belittled by one of the speakers, and I didn't think that was really fair. And this was a really lot of work that went into this. So thank you.
Thank you. I would say that our decision point here is one, whether we should file for a safe harbor and vote that tonight or not. And I think we need to continue the hearing. I think we need to give a list of things we'd like the applicant to address on our continuation of the hearing. And I'd be happy to have Elizabeth work us happily through this conundrum.
Yeah, and I don't have a great solution, but I know that it seems like there are some outstanding questions relative to the implications of petitioning for safe harbor and that process. We do have another hearing within the 14 days. Certainly, we could ask town council for guidance on that and make a more informed decision at our next hearing.
Let me ask this. Let's say we don't go for the safe harbor. What authority do we still have to work on this application to affect it?
Well, again, I think the comprehensive permit process in and of itself is one of negotiation with your development partner in order to create a project that balances meeting the community's need for affordable housing, which again, I think we can clearly establish, and creating a project that is consistent with the, again, character of the area, with any environmental concerns that exist. And so that is the balancing act, I think, which we are going through, especially because this is a friendly 40B process, especially because this is a step, I think, in a chain of events that has been happening since about 2021 on this project, where, again, we had a study committee, we had a robust community engagement process, we had an RFP that reflected that, we have an agreement with the developers that reflect the RFP, and now, you know, we are in this other sort of stage of refinement, I would call it, based on the comments tonight, you know, it is your obligation to oversee.
Let's say we feel strongly about something and the applicant doesn't want to accede to that strong feeling. Where does that leave us if we don't have a safe harbor? Does it still have some authority over what happens if we can't come to an agreement?
So again, I think we enter this project as community partners. You know, I think there are different levels of that, right? There are conditions, say, reducing the number of units that, as the architect spoke to, would create the project uneconomic. There are other level of decisions relative to tree planting that, you know, again, there may be, you know, sort of, you get some and you don't get some.
Yeah, I don't think we're worried about tree planting at this point. David?
Based on the applicant's comments that they have a history of working with people and they intend to work with us, I would make a motion that we choose not to go with the safe harbor application.
Clarification, what would the voting quorum be for this? Because it's related to comprehensive permit, would it also be
I presume
simple
it's
majority?
Simple majority, yeah.
And not our usual
I
supermajority?
think it's a simple majority.
Yeah. Is there a second to that motion?
Please re-clarify the motion.
I move that we, based on the applicant's comments, that they're willing to work with us, that we not pursue the safe harbor procedure application.
I have a question for the applicant before I can vote on that. What are the odds you can bring the building down a little bit? I have to say, the overlay, you know, all the work the planning board did for this overlay and the ability for developers to build three-story buildings now, I think the look of this building is something we're not used to. And if we ever get a developer, somebody's gonna build a three-story building, and we're all gonna freak out. Maybe this is the first three-story, I know it's not three stories, it's two, but it's got a giant roof on it. This may be the first big building that this town sees. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Because I don't know how the developer is gonna make this
Yeah.
building smaller
Well,
and keep the units.
Right, and if I can make a comment, you know, I think that technically there was included a waiver from the height requirements. Upon closer review, you can do 42 feet in the district, and I do think this building, the larger buildings are compliant, and we did just pass an overlay, you know, that I think this, where, you know, the town adjudicated, you know, again, the balance between the need for year-round housing and the ability to have a three-story building, and you know, that passed by more than a majority at town meetings. So I think we've answered some of those questions, and certainly, again, we can talk more, you know, we can have the planning board or others talk more about the
Let me
balance
ask
on
you
the
this.
site.
How does that building compare to the Cape Cod 5? It can't be any bigger. Than
And so, again, certainly we can bring that back. We did a lot of study when we did the zoning overlay of the existing height and mass that does exist in this town. You know, we've had a board member point out that we have other three-story condo buildings that are very large in here. So I do think taking some time to step back and thinking about context is important, and that a number of our buildings and even our most historic ones do have a significant amount of mass here in Orleans.
Ms. Gaskell, you want to say something more?
Can I speak to the motion that was made?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Sure. I don't see why we wouldn't do the safe harbor, because it appears to me that the town has one interest and the developers have another. When we're talking about what we want, we're talking about the style, how it looks, how it fits into the town. when they're speaking, they're talking about the economy of it. They're talking about, well, we'll have to add an extra elevator, we'll have to add an extra wall. So we're looking at two different interests here. I think it would be a good insurance policy for us to have the safe harbor.
Well, thank you, but if you put the town in the third seat, that would be a more accurate presentation of what's going on here tonight.
Okay.
If you put Mr. Matheson sitting next to Mr. Freeman, that would be that would be the appropriate presentation. This is the town's proposal. And we're acting on the town's proposal. And so we're putting ourselves as in opposition to, I think, symbolically at least, if we vote to seek a safe harbor, we're in effect saying that we're getting ready to oppose the town.
I didn't get a second, did
Well, not yet, I'll give you a second.
If I may, I just wanted to say, I'm speaking for the developer team, happy to go on the record and say, independent of this board's decision to seek the safe harbor, we're completely committed to working and negotiating with you to try to get this project into a place that's something that we all, including the folks in the audience, can be proud of. We're not in the business or interested in trying to cram a project down anyone's throat. Hack works and operates out of Cape Cod. POA wants to continue to do business here in Orleans and on the Cape as well. So we're not interested in trying to just get this one through and then sail off into the sunset. We plan to be in this community and others on the Cape for many years to come. So we're, independent of your decision, we're committed to working with you.
All right, well, I've seconded David's motion. Is there discussion?
I think there's some value in the symbolic nature, like you noted. It is, again, it feels though it's a safety blanket to have the option. I don't foresee myself needing to leverage it myself, but given that the town has never had the option to do this before, I think there's some innate desire to have the flexibility if needed. I'm inclined to believe that the applicants, inclusive of the town that's been working with the applicants, are willing to work with us on this project. And I'm not sure it's necessary to meet the goals of what we need on the board, given what I've seen so far today. I think there could be value in having it as a safety blanket, but again, it would be a I don't think it's going to materially change how this project is going to go. So,
Yeah, I mean, if you feel that we need it because we want to deny the project, then where are we? Where's the town? Where are we? Anyway, Isabella, do you have any thoughts you want to articulate?
I believe we should go for we should file for that.
Safe harbor. Martin?
It's a little insulting to the town, but it is an insurance policy. I do not like the structure of building one, and don't know how much the developer can change it to make it look a little less intrusive. So maybe this is a good thing to have an insurance policy to have some leverage.
Okay.
Because otherwise we have nothing, in all honesty.
We'll call the vote. Isabel?
No.
Austin?
yes.
I'm a yes.
Yes.
No.
Well, the motion passes to forego filing seeking a safe harbor. The next question we have is, what do we want the applicant to come back to the town with to improve this project? I guess, anybody want to start? I'll start with, it's obvious, I mean, you've heard all our comments. You know that the mass of building 1 and 2 is an issue. Sibel has suggested that she's our architect in resident, and she has great weight with us. Has suggested that there can be design changes that don't affect the mass, but affect the appearance of mass. And so I guess we'd like to have comments on that. I think it would be helpful to us to see, to have some presentation on the project finances that require this kind of this number of this mix of housing. It was very instructive to me to hear that the 80% it has to be 80% to fall into the 10% definition. That was new information to me anyway, and very helpful. Explained a lot of the need for the housing that's in the buildings 1 and 2. We want to see, I think, a little more full planting plan with trees and other things we want. David?
And don't get me wrong, I think the site plan, I think everything about it is good. I think it's going to be a good project for the town, but it's our job to try and make it better.
Yeah, and I think I can speak for the developer team. I think all of us have been frantically scribbling notes of all the questions and feedback, and so I have a long list of.
Take mine off the roof. That was
I have a long list of things, ranging from the size of the green, the setbacks, precedent for the parking ratios, some different renderings. So I think we'll all huddle up, probably rewatch this hearing.
Comment about playground is right on, but I don't know where there's enough land, and you find that. That's all over the town.
Personally, I want to work with you on this. I think that's important, and I'm looking forward to that.
Great.
To that point, and Elizabeth can back me up, I don't think we need to schedule it tonight, but it's perfectly appropriate to have so-called workshops where no more than 2 zoning members could attend, but it's a meeting where any staff that you want and 1 or 2 of the zoning members and our team, just meet in a, just more, sit down at a table together and go over things. I think we need to get back to you with some of the things that we all just discussed, but I just want to point out that we could indeed have that type of exchange that is not a hearing per se, and you can't make any decisions at such a meeting, but you can report back, and, so I just want to throw that out there.
Is there any way to do 3D views into the property? Because that would help me. I mean,
Well,
there are
we
a lot
already,
of-
we brought up very early on in the meeting, I think it's important to
we
see
need
what
to-
it looks like from the rail trail.
Yeah.
And what it looks like from 6A.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can certainly
Yeah,
produce
we can-
new renderings.
Yep. Yep.
Austin?
I think you had mentioned the setbacks. I think it would be useful to know, just even if it's very high level, just some comparable properties, whether it's along the rail trail. The Old Colony apartments are certainly the ones that jump out to me the most. And then additionally, I'd be interested, we were talking about the new overlay district, how some of the building design, sizing, and things like facade articulation, do they align with the overlay district? And if we do start to get additional structures built in the village center commensurate with that new zoning that allows the larger buildings, will this be in family with those, or will this be an exception to those? I think it would be, personally, it'd be nice to have them comply with that within reason. Obviously there'll be nonconformances, or there'll be waivers related to density and the such, but from a design perspective, I think it would be nice for it to be commensurate with what we're expecting the town to look like in the future.
Take a look.
The only thing, if I may, please?
Please.
The thing that we didn't really discuss, which I had a question, and we could discuss this the next time, but in item 16431D, about no dwelling unit shall have its lowest floor below grade at any point within its entire perimeter. So the basement level of building 1 has units, right? The basement level, looking to the back, to the rail?
Yes. Yeah.
So it seems like in order to provide that, what you did is you actually cut into the grade. So you made it, look more even taller by cutting into the grade, probably to comply with that. I wasn't clear. I wasn't sure. It's just a question if that's the case or not.
Yeah, I'll just maybe go into another drawing really quickly that shows the side elevation. But we're using the grade to be able to provide walkout apartments on the backside, on one side of the building. And, sorry, okay, I think this is it. Yep, too many clicks right here. It's hard to see, but the top two elevations are the side elevations. So you can see how it's graded, and there's a retaining wall as well to provide access to the bike storage. Also, fire department has to have access on one side of the building and locate all the backflow preventers and easy access to it. That's the top right, and then top left, the same thing is you can see that basement level is really a full story in height for the length, for the long length of the building. The short length, it's pushed in.
The units in the middle of the building just have the two windows,
No, those are-
windows in the front. The windows in the middle of the units in the middle of that building just have windows on one side.
Yeah.
So,
So, oops, sorry.
Could
Go
you go
back.
back, so, does that correctly reflect the setback? That building is pushed that much farther back? It doesn't appear to be that on the site plans.
Yep, that's correct. And
So the site plan I have doesn't reflect that correctly.
that's a really tough scale to read the setback. You know, because the
Well,
plan is
no,
so small on paper.
That helps me a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
Because the site plan that we were provided doesn't look like that at all.
Right.
So if I could, please, if you didn't have the retaining walls,
Yeah.
then the building would basically be more into the grade from that back view.
That's true, yes.
And you had to do the retaining wall, so you would have openings on all sides to comply with that regulation of the base.
Correct, and provide access to the floor plan, which I'm trying to get to. But you have it in your packets. Yeah, I think those are all just elevations, I'm sorry. Did not include the floor plans.
The other issue was Austin's issue about the ownership and the HOA arrangements.
Yep.
Any other issues that we'd like them to?
There's a couple that I plan to bring up the next time we discuss, like why we're electing to use the high-density polyethylene as opposed to the state mandated, I think it was concrete or concrete-covered metal for drainage. I think it was the very last waiver that was requested. And then clarification on when we'll understand what the signage will be, because I think that was left as an open item in the waivers list.
Is it fair to assume that 2 weeks is not enough time to accomplish this?
Yeah, I think realistically, I also open my calendar. We should all do.
Sorry if I can interject. I think I would recommend that we can get back to you. Well, Peter will check his calendar, but there's no way we can address all these questions in 2 weeks. And I will say that the architecture portion will not be in 2 weeks. So what we might be able to do is perhaps give a sort of priority list of things that we can address in 2 weeks,
Well,
and
I'm
outline a few
I'm
hearings.
suggesting we not meet in 2 weeks.
Oh,
Yeah, put it off for-
And I have a conflict, another ZBA hearing that night on the Cape. But perhaps a month, Wednesday, the 17th. Is that okay?
Good with us.
If you need more time, you can also just request.
Yeah,
a
and the other thing is, if you need more time,
I'm going to be out of the country on the 17th.
We'll have to be cognizant of the Mullen rule if this is going to go a significant period of time.
That's true. That's true.
Backfill.
Yep, that's true.
One meeting.
And
I'm sorry, what is that?
If this is going to be a 10-meeting-long discussion, Mullen rule only allows us to miss one meeting and review
Oh, I see, okay.
So,
Yeah.
I'll be cognizant of our quorum is important.
Yep, sure is. So do you want to miss the one meeting with David or put it off to the next, which is,
The 24th?
which one's that?
No, it would be the first
First Wednesday.
Are you
in
back?
Wednesday in July.
Yeah.
July. What day is that?
I can't.
Second, third, first?
Yeah.
July 1st.
I am. I'm around.
Is it July 1st?
Yeah.
Do we have to meet on a first or a third
Yeah, could we hold a
Wednesday?
special meeting?
Can't have a special meeting
That's a good question. I think we probably could.
Yeah, you,
and have it a working session?
Well, yeah, well, it's be a full meeting. The working sessions that Attorney Freeman mentioned have, only one board member can be there or participate, the others can.
Yeah, that's true.
do it. It's sort of awkward and
and we'd need another
we
hearing.
can, we
with you
can,
folks
we can have a
before work.
special meeting, we can schedule a meeting anytime, really. Those meetings were the dates we have normally scheduled.
You have to have a date and time certain.
We have to have a date and time service because it has to be noticed. and
Yeah.
2 weeks' notice.
The 17th didn't work for somebody, but is there another day that week that works? June 17th?
Are you going, you're out of the country for how long, David?
Um,
When do you get back?
Well, I'm flying back in on the 17th, but my plane doesn't arrive until 5:30 at night.
Oh, you'll be good.
Well, is the 18th? You don't have jet lag?
I could attend virtually in my car with my cell phone.
No, I'll be silly.
Well, no, I can't.
We can make a date, we can make a date. Is the 18th, is 18th?
I don't want to, the time's going to go by quickly here. Agreed?
Even the 18th?
Yeah, understood. No, I'm just,
Well, how about the week, what's the week after the 17th? What's the 24th?
24th.
How about June 24th?
it works.
Same time as.
Same time, so just a
Opposite of
Wednesday
week.
night?
Works. I misunderstood. I thought Mr. Little was still away, but June 24th.
Oh, no, that works.
Okay.
24th would work for me.
24th.
Okay,
June
great.
24th?
Can I just have 1 minute just to check the town calendar to make sure there's
Oh, yeah, we will.
7 other meetings that night, and we're gonna be like.
No other board's crazy enough to have 7 PM meetings. We'll do it in our random room downstairs.
We can meet in the hall,
Duly noted.
So we're looking at June 24th.
June 24th.
That looks great. The only thing on the books is 1 PM council on aging.
They'll be through by then.
Perfect.
We'll all be asleep
All
by
right,
then.
June 24th.
Sorry, couldn't resist. All right, June 24th,
All right.
Seven
Thank you.
PM.
7 PM.
Yep. Thank you very much.
This room
Appreciate
would be
it.
nice
Need a
again.
motion, Jerry?
Yeah, wait a minute. This room would be nice. Yeah, why don't we need, have a motion to set a meeting for June 24th, 7 PM? And to cancel, if we can cancel I don't think of anything scheduled for the 17th at this point anyway. All right,
I don't think we've advertised anything for that.
yeah, I don't think there's anything scheduled.
Might just fall off.
You don't think the Hayward might be ready?
That's next week, that's the 3rd.
They're coming in on the 3rd.
All right,
I move we continue this case until June 24th at 7 PM.
again, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. How about a motion to adjourn? Anything else to come before the meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Seconded.
In favor? Thank you.